Yes, everyone, you know what time it is. It's your boy Jack here at the Irish Hotspur, here to deliver you a bit of a news update, as well as finally delivering you the Pedro Porro end of the saga. We've been delivered the here we go by Fabrizio Romano, everybody. We can finally rest easy. None of those reports about maybe the deal breaking down or perhaps Chelsea, hijacking it or all of a sudden Sporting asking for more. It just seems like, maybe it just was kind of getting a bit sort of a, how would you say it? Just got a little bit testy, got a little bit sort of kind of, maybe a bit heated because we were a bit worried it could fall through. And plenty of ways we've seen these transfers fall through, but it has been done. Pedro Porro is the second official signing of this Tottenham Hotspur January transfer window. This one is a permanent deal, though, for around 48 million euros, according to Fabrizio Romano. I am going to read it aloud here, everybody, for you guys to see. I am going to give you a bit of the details here on it. But Dave, maybe kind of your initial thoughts on it before I really read the details on it. What are your kind of like initial thoughts on this? Seeing the saga end with Pedro Porro, right? He was a priority target for us this January transfer window. Your initial thoughts on the signing, and then also just the saga finally ending, Dave.
Look, Jack, we spoke a bit about on the watch along yesterday. I said to everybody that I wasn't too bothered. I think it will be announced after the cup final yesterday, and it sort of was announced. We got the here we go as soon as I left, I believe, which wasn't good because I would have loved to sit here and gloat about Pedro Porro. But no, Jack, look, it's our first choice target in that position. Now, look, we're going to get into it. I do have slight gripes over how long it took. We end up paying the release clause anyway, which means it didn't need to take 29 days to get done realistically. But at the end of the day, it's a first choice target and it's a position, look, right wing back, right back, I believe if you're good enough, you can play in both. And it's a position that, Brian Daigle so famously uses my quotes on it about, since Kyle Walker, every signing has got progressively worse. And it looks like we finally, in my opinion, have finally sorted out that position.
Yeah, it feels like we could maybe get it right this time. It's a graveyard of maybe poor transfers made in the past when it comes to right wing back. We've always seemed to maybe get it sort of right, you could say, with left wing back or with left back. I thought, like we said before, Sergei Reguilon, I don't think was really that much of a failed transfer. Of course, we had Danny Rose as well. Perisic has been okay for us. Sassignon, you would say, maybe is the real dud. Kind of out of all of them. But for the most part, it just feels like the right hand side is where Spurs have kind of just gotten it wrong in the past, just have a bad history, just maybe just kind of bad, kind of you could say even hoodoo with kind of how they get it sort of wrong at right back. But just to read the official details, these are kind of all the most recent tweets as it is from Fabrizio Romano here. Everybody, he says Tottenham want to get all contracts signed today for Pedro Porro deal after verbal agreement reached with Sporting on Saturday night. It's done for a fee close to around 45 million euros. Some are maybe reporting it's actually around 48 million euros. Pedro Porro prepared to travel to London with his agents later today. Contract with Spurs is going to be till 2028. And he also says more on the Pedro Porro deal. Tottenham have never considered this signing at risk or close to ever collapsing. Porro was the priority target since the beginning of January. So there you are, everybody. That's kind of the initial sort of kind of, let's say reports, the tweets from Fabrizio Romano himself. I'm going to get to the chat here, everybody, but this is a bit of a news update, and I do want this to be sort of kind of brief in case anybody is watching this back. So I do want to say hello to all of you in the chat, then get a bit to the news about maybe what Pedro Porro could bring to Spurs. Ask Dave kind of his thoughts on it as well, because Dave's yet to really have a strong opinion on all of these kind of transfer sagas and stuff. So I want to get, pick his brain on it, but I'm going to get to the chat here quickly, and then I'm going to get into this sort of kind of Pedro Porro kind of scout report, because we did one sort of beforehand, but now maybe we're going to do one live for you guys in case you missed it. Dark Sun G saying, come on, you Spurs, Liverpool losing to Brighton plus Porro is a great week. Absolutely, Dave. And what would you say, especially after having basically one of the worst weeks I've ever seen in maybe Tottenham Hotspur history, to bounce back after that with such a good week? It wasn't, let's say, the greatest week ever, but a good one. Dark Sun G isn't wrong. A great week for us, he says, in his opinion.
No, look, it just shows how quickly the landscape can change in football, Jack. The Arsenal, the North London derby and the Man City game, wasn't a great week, let's be honest. But then this week, look, I'm still not going to put it down as a great week, but it's sort of like a stepping stone in the right direction. Look, you start with Dark G's comments about Liverpool losing to Brighton today. Jack, me and you anticipated this. As soon as they were drawn away to Brighton, we were like, ooh, they could be gone here. I was speaking, as everyone knows, I was at my sister's boyfriend's birthday party last night, and He's a Liverpool fan. My best mate was there. He's a Liverpool fan. Two of them had no hope going into today. So I was absolutely buzzing. But to see them gone, Jack, that blows the FA Cup wide open. It only leaves Manchester United and Man City as top 6 teams left in the competition. If they can draw each other Monday night, it blows the FA Cup wide open for Tottenham Hotspur, because I fancy us to beat every other team left in the draw, bar Man City and Man United. So we could very easily, if the draw is kind to us, find ourselves in a semi-final very, very quickly in this competition. And once you're in a semi-final, you're always within a chance of winning it. Plus, bringing in Pedro, Porro. Look, we're going to get into it. I do have my gripes on why it took 29 days, but at the end of the day, it's a good sign. And I encourage everybody to go back and look at the highlights from the guy when he played against us. It was kids' play for him. We pressed the living shit out of him, and he played out of it every single time. Doesn't matter if pressed him, whether it was Perisic, Son, Kane. It didn't matter. Just little balls around the corner, taking them on. This guy is going to bring so much to this Tottenham team, which I'm going to get into. And I cannot wait. For me, a brilliant signing. And this is what I'm genuinely excited about.
Love it. Everybody, if you're joining us, we're talking about Pedro Porro. We're going to be giving you all the details on the Here We Go, kind of giving you a bit of a live sort of scout report, as well as picking Dave's brain, like I said before, if you are just joining us, about maybe what his thoughts on this transfer, maybe how he can sort of fit into this Tottenham Hotspur team. Can he even fit into this Conte system? Could he even fit into a different system in case Antonio Conte had to leave? Those sort of good questions. We're going to see what he has to say on it, everybody. Just going to, like I said before, going to get to the chat here, picked out some of you that I want to say hello to, and then we're going to get straight into it. Peter M saying big up everyone, and he's also saying hello to Dermot. Good man, Peter. We also have Matt in the house saying Enoch out and leave you out. Good to see you in here, Matt. Dermot saying big up, guys. Hopefully you're keeping well this morning, Dermot. Tempest Fugit, hello planet Earth. Good to see you, Tempest. DB's in the house. Afternoon, boys. Hopefully you're keeping well, DB. And it's been a while, I think, DB, unless you were in the chat yesterday.
No, he was there yesterday, DB. He was keeping me in check, Jacko. DB was. Big up, DB. Up,
I missed you, DB. That's my fault, my man. I'll keep a better eye for you. Good to see you in here, my friend. Mojo Matsy's in the house saying, I love Brighton. Honestly, they're just tearing apart Liverpool. They have their number right now, Mojo. Ignacio saying, thoughts on Hincapie? We'll get straight into it, Ignacio. But what I would say is, he kind of is maybe a bit of a risky sort of kind of, center back choice. He's very raw, very young. So I've heard as well, kind of maybe has a mistake in him here or two, still has some developing to do. So the real question I'm going to be asking Dave later, Ignacio, maybe ask you right away as well, and maybe give me your thoughts on it, is kind of, would you rather go for that young, talented center back that has a huge ceiling, right, but maybe still has some work to do? Or would you rather maybe go for, let's say, more of a ready-made kind of, you know what he's all about type center back, but let's say kind of already has reached his ceiling, maybe to a degree, type player? Because that's usually kind of what Spurs sort of kind of deal with, those two scenarios. So let me know, Ignacio. 164 is in the house saying, good evening, Jack and Dave. Good to see you, 164 Spurs. Ian Cook, afternoon, David and Jack, and everybody in the chat. Ian, you absolute legend. Good to see you in here. Nice little badge beside the name as well, alongside John Stokes, the legend. Afternoon, David, Jack. Big up, everyone. All we need now is a center back. It's good news that we've gotten this Pedro Porro deal done, Dave, because it does feel like now we're just sort of in the dreamland of trying to figure out whether, we are going to get a center back or not. Sort of getting these two signings done leads us to now speculating over the one thing we've wanted this whole time, the center back.
I'll be honest, Jack, it probably comes from the Spurs fan in me and probably years of disappointment. I'm not holding out any hope for a centre-back. But look, we'll wait and see. What I will say, getting Porro done does give us the opportunity to maybe work on something over the next 2 days, because deadline day is Tuesday. But John, big yourself up, my man. Hopefully you recover. I was speaking to him this morning in the group chat. Big up, John.
Absolute legend, Johnny is. Josh Smith is in here too, Dave, and he says, big up, lads. Tell me we're bidding for Hincapie is true. It's a verbal bid, so perhaps it was just Paratici just over kind of the earpiece like here and just kind of slipped in kind of like a 25 million or something like that. Just kind of let it slip out the mouth, I think, and maybe then Bill, out in Germany got wind of it. Derek Smith saying 2 signings, a debut goal, and an easy 3-0 win to go to the next round of the FA Cup. Derek. A good week. One of the only teams that looked like that kind of sort of dealt with the opposition quite handily, away from home too. So that's also a good sign. Brian Dempsey in here. All right, lads, just seeing 25 million bid for Hincapie. When is the club going to learn? Actually makes a joke out of the fan base for other clubs. We always have to lowball first, Brian Dempsey. You know how it is. We always lowball them first. It's just how it's our style, my man. Phil is in the house, Dave, and he's saying, lads, I think we might just have our right wing back for a good number of years now, a proper replacement since Kyle Walker left. Hincapie, I'd be happy with the window. If we get Hincapie, I'd be happy with the window. Then that'd be an 8 out of 10 window for me, in my opinion, with Hincapie. Come on, you Spurs. Dave, Hincapie brought in, would you agree? 8 out of 10? And also, are you sort of maybe excited about the wingback future with Udogie as well as Pedro Porro?
Look, I'll be honest. I don't like getting into rating these transfer windows, but yeah, I would agree somewhere along the lines with a 7 or an 8 out of 10, because you got to look at it, and that's only if we bring in a centre back. Because right now we've brought in a player in the forward areas, which Jack, you highlighted yesterday, which was needed. You need 6. You can't afford to have 5 players there. Lucas Moura has been injured for the majority of the season. His contract is up at the end of the season, so we needed Danjuma. Bringing in Pedro Porro has solved a long-term issue at this football club. And bringing in a centre-back is identifying a position that has cost us so dearly so far this season. It gives us the flexibility to play Hincapie on the left and move Langley into the middle, which means you can eliminate Dyer. Now, look, the goalkeeper issue is still going to persist, in my opinion, between now and the end of the season. But you would say, you look at it, three areas addressed that needed to be addressed this window if we bring in the centre-back.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Big up, Phil. Good to see you in here, my man. Paul Langford, how's it going, lads? Hope you're both well. I'm doing well, Paul. Hopefully you're keeping well too, my man. Spursy Spurs. If Pedro Porro officially wearing a Spurs shirt, when is he doing his medical? I'd imagine medical is being done today, and potentially we could get. What would you say? Would they release the pictures all in one day, or are they going to release the pictures tomorrow? What do you think?
Well, Jack, from as far as I'm aware, the personal terms have been agreed for quite some time. So today it should be just about formalities, flying him in, getting the medical done, and then more or less getting the media stuff done. Now, look,
Getting the
media stuff
TikToks
can
done,
take
all that
times,
stuff.
the likes of getting the pictures taken, some quotes, putting them all together for the social medias. So potentially you might not see it announced officially until tomorrow morning if that's the case, but I would like it done today.
This is sort of the day, Spursy Spurs, where they're doing all the media stuff, taking all the pictures, getting them, in the kit and everything, having them do a few one of these, and things like that. That's what I think he's doing today, getting those kind of warmed up. And Mark P, afternoon, boys, great news. Come on, you Spurs, absolutely great news, Mark. Derek Hutchinson's in the house too. Good to see you, Derek. Chelsea could hijack him at the airport. I would not put it past them to try. Todd Bowley might be on that plane. You never know. He's probably trying to sit right next to him.
Don't do it, Derek. Don't do it, man. Don't put the jinxers on it.
They flew out to Poland to get Mudryk. You never put it past him. Kola saying, great day yesterday. Good to see you, Kola, in here. We also have Mark in the house saying, come on, you Spurs. We need a center back as soon as possible. I definitely agree with you there. The multi-channel is here. Porro desperately needed. I think he's here. No longer needed. I think he's here. Tempest Future hoping for one more. I think so. Like that's where I'm at. I feel like it's a 4 out of 10 window. I know, like Dave said, you don't want to give it a number, but for me, it is like a 4 out of 10 at the very most. If we, if it stops here, at least. We still need defenders or even a goalkeeper. Spencer Arnold, 100%. We need a center back now. Completely agree, Spencer. Mark McGavitt's in here. About time. Yeah, exactly right, Mark. Steve Webb, first choice player. One of Conte's first choice players. Does this mean Conte will sign a new contract? These are the type of signings that would start to maybe warm Conte up a little bit. I'm not sure. It feels like we've gone after him for so long. There's no way that Conte could say, like, it's not his choice of a signing or anything like that. Like, it's also somebody that Paratici has always clearly been a big fan of as well. Spurs have been scouting him for some time. So I do think this is sort of where everybody seems, I would imagine, would be on the same page when it comes to this Pedro Porro signing. Big up, Steve.
Big up, Steve.
We also have John Jeet in the house, or Jack Jeet in the house, saying, now bring center backs in, then top 4, 100%. Completely agree. And we're going to ask Dave that as well. Don't you worry, my man, about verbal agreement is not something you want to hear when dealing with Sporting. They've been playing very hard ball with us. They certainly have. What time is the draw for the FA Cup tomorrow, Dave?
I think, if I remember correctly, it was either 7 or 7:30. It's on BBC One in the middle of the One show. I don't know why the One show is being brought into this FA Cup. It's a heap of shit anyway. But yeah, 7 or 7:30 tomorrow evening.
Good man. Good man. Pyle Ireson is in the house too. Now a center back before the window shuts is a decent window. I'm with you, Paul. Exactly right. CF is saying, is this going to bring creation and get everyone's head back was Preston, and bringing in Porro a springboard forward. We'll talk about that. You're already getting ahead of me. So yeah, that's a good question. Anthony Gonzalez, 2 center backs, and we are all good. Maybe a Cam. We are slowly getting there. Hope you're both well. I'm doing well, Anthony. And I think you're right. Probably only can get maybe one of those done this January, but you're on the right track for the summer, Anthony. You're on the right track, my man. Savvy saying, how much do you rate Destiny Udogie? Have seen a lot of hype around his name on Twitter. Believe me, I think a lot of people rate him. He's had a terrific season so far for the likes of Udinese. I think he's just a whole lot better than Sessegnon. And believe me that, like, he'll be an instant improvement there. He just has, I think, a lot of the things that sort of Sessegnon just doesn't. He has that sort of courage to take it past his man, likes to drift forward, likes to cut inside, just is actually just an all-around baller. It feels like on that out wide. Is kind of tall and strong too, so it looks like he has the physical build for the Premier League. I like him, Savvy. Mick Ermelach's in the house. Good to see you, my man. Peter M. Saying, but bet we get City or United away in the 5th round.
Don't do it, lad. Please, I'm dreaming this year. I've been on the phone to Ollie all week, and we're planning, like, could Spurs get to an FA Cup final? Can Ollie fit it in around these holidays? We've been planning it because the top 6 teams are going. It's being done in secret, so don't put the jinxers on it, please, Peter. If this happens, everyone blame Peter M.
Peter, the bottom dude, big up Jack and Dave. The bottom dude, I will get back to you. I promise you. I will get back to you. Really appreciate you tuning in, my friend. John saying, well done, Brighton, winning and playing good football. I mean, they have Liverpool's number, John. And then Dermot saying with a super chat, big up Dermot Brown. Great news. I'm buzzing. One more to come. Come on, you Spurs. Everybody wants one more. Big up Dermot Brown. Chris is in the house as well, saying big up, guys. Good to see you, Chris Ackenbar. You absolute legend. Really do appreciate you tuning in. And then William Kelly, Dave, had a good chat with him the other day. I hope you get to catch up with him. And he says, remember what I said, boys, we win the trophy this year and we are massive underdogs in the final. Conte is staying, trophies incoming.
Now, I've done a bit of research on Antonio Conte and the sort of vibes that's going on around Tottenham now. And when this, like, sort of calling out the owners, the playing squad, happened at the end of his Juve tenure, the end of his Chelsea tenure, and the end of his Inter tenure, it does seem like his time is coming to an end. But what I will say, William, is Antonio Conte's last season at Chelsea, he finished 5th, but won the FA Cup. So, with the way the FA Cup is unfolding this year and the way we are in the league, 5th might be achievable in the league, but also an FA Cup final appearance, I'm hoping, could be on the cards. So you never know. It could be a final swan song for Antonio. Me personally, I don't believe we're going to see him here in the dugout next season. I'll be very, very surprised. I want him here in the dugout. I think he's a good manager, world-class manager, and he has the capability of delivering trophies, but that does come with him needing to be back with the players he wants. When he hasn't got that or continue to get that at other clubs, he has left. So that's what makes me think he'd believe him. But if he can sign off with an FA Cup, he goes down as one of our greatest managers, surely.
Love that. And also, Dave, I had a really good chat with William Kelvey the other day on the fan show, and it was good catching up with him. He kept me company as well. I was kind of calling out to the people saying, you know what, I'm on my last guest here. If it ends here, it ends now. And William Kelly answered the call. He's a good man, William. And
hopefully Luke's doing all right as well. And hopefully things are still going well with the new Mrs. Brother. Big up, William.
Good man, William. Dark Sun G saying, I'd rather the goalkeeper than a center back this January because even with a center back, Lloris is still poor. Dark Sun G, I've brought this up before where Lloris is sort of like, he's in a tough position where he isn't exactly, he's not a sweeper keeper anymore. Like, he really struggles to have that sort of athleticism as well as that courage and bravery to leave his box and be able to help out the back line in case there's any ball over the top, which then means, right, with the sort of center backs we have, which aren't very good in the first place, you can't really play a high line with a ton of confidence, knowing that someone like Lloris isn't really the most confident of sweeper keepers, or really isn't a sweeper keeper whatsoever. And then also with Lloris, you can't really give him any back passes, as we know, can't trust him when you're kind of being put under any sort of pressure. It just feels like he is still going to be a liability no matter the center back that we bring in. And even I thought he wasn't actually all that great in the first place for the France team. I really didn't think he actually had that great of a tournament. I know it's kind of, different opinions on that, kind of, a bit subjective, but that's just me personally. I don't even think he looked all that convincing in that France team. And he was playing in front of some pretty terrific center backs for the most part as well. And so I'm with you, Dark Sun G. I do see this point. It's just, can we get a goalkeeper done in January? It's hard.
No.
It's usually not possible. It's one of those positions where you can't really take somebody's best goalkeeper in January, but it might solve more problems than the center back. You don't even know. Maybe you might be right.
We won't get the goalkeeper we need, which is a goalkeeper for the long term. We won't get this January. It just won't happen. But what I'm just going to add to this quickly is, sometimes Hugo Lloris's confidence isn't helped with some of the back passes that go back to him. If you think back to some of the back passes that Dyer's got to hit back to him and it's gone out for a corner kick, some of the balls are bobbling back, this, that, and the other. Some of the back passes haven't been great to him, which doesn't help his confidence. And if you have a better defence in front of him and players who can play that ball properly, it might actually help Hugo out until the end of the season. I do see where Dark CNG is coming from. Ideally, we need both. We need centre-backs and a goalkeeper, but with the amount of money we'll be looking to spend on a goalkeeper, we're not going to spend it this January. I wouldn't even get your hopes up.
Big up, Dark Sun G, my man. Yeah. But I see it's just nice, and we even saw he was a safe pair of hands. It felt like yesterday. Fraser Forster, Dark Sun G, never thought about him once. Big up. Killian Gubens is in the house. Good to see you in here, Killian. You absolute legend. Doherty. He's got to improve, Killian. He's got to improve, Killian. He's got to improve. It was a bit boring of a display, I thought, from him yesterday. Tell him, have a word with him. Tell him to, be a bit more brave on the ball, Killian.
10 times he passed the ball inside yesterday, Jack, and that's going to be the difference between Doherty and Pedro Porro.
Shemtan saying, hey guys, great to see you both together again. Hope you're doing well, Dave and Jack. Finally, we got to Here we go for Porro, now a center back and a cheeky bid for Madison. Ooh, I like where your head is at, Shem. I like where your head is at. He wants more. He wants more.
Every Spurs fan wants more. We always want more, and it's a good thing. Big up, Shem, though. Really appreciate it. I hope you keep him well, dude.
And then Dermot in here again, really appreciate your support, Dermot. He's saying, I'm buzzing Conte will stay. We have a golden opportunity to take us to the next level. For my window, it would be a 7.5 out of 10. If we bring in a center back, 9 out of 10 for me. Whoa, Dermot, it's already a 7.5. That must mean then that Pedro Porro, you must think, is really going to transform this team. I know you're not really a big fan of Emerson. You're probably not big a fan of maybe Doherty either. I know since you watch him in the Aviva alongside Dave a lot, so you're probably hearing all of Dave, talking about Doherty. So maybe you've been dying for that right wing back. Maybe Dermot's been really, thinking the right wing back can transform this team. And I feel like a 7.5 is a stretch there, Dermo. It's very generous. I gave it a 4, but if you really rate Pedro Porro that high, and if he transforms this team that much, maybe I'd push it to like a 5, or a 6 or something like that. But I don't know about a 7.5 yet, Dermot. I don't know about a 7.5.
I'll be honest, I thought it was a rarity to find someone in the YouTube community that's a bit more delusional than me, but we found them, and it's Dermatron. But do you know what? I'd love to have Dermo's optimism in life. I really, really would love to have that optimism. Look, I've got a similar question, and it's probably one for another day, but Danjuma, Porro, can they have a similar impact to Bentancur and Kulusevski from last season? Now, that's probably another discussion for another day, but people, think about it. And, put your thoughts in the chat about it. Let us know. Do you think they can have a similar impact?
There you are. Big up Dermatron. And he's saying, come on, you Harris Army. Come on, you Flat Cap Army. Big up Dermo. Spurs in the house saying, big up, lads. Still need a center back before Thursday. I think you're right, dude. And the sooner the better. But it would make the window, I think, probably for more of the general Spurs fan base, I think more we would be more assured that Conte has maybe a bit more tools to work with if he gets that center back. I think we'd be fixing a lot of issues. And I take pretty much anything Hotspur. The defense is that bad, really. I take anything, really. Anything that walks. Even I take Davo if he's willing to make
a move Hotspur. I'd support Hotspur at center back.
Exactly right. Yeah, you're left-footed. We need a left-sided center back. Big up, my man. Mia W. Big up, guys. Good to see you, Mia. Hopefully you're keeping well. Chris is in here. Don't think we're going to get Hincapie. Bayer Leverkusen up in their price tag on him. I mean, we really underbid them and we really lowballed them, Chris. But as you know, it's just kind of how we operate. It's just the typical Spur kind of a transfer kind of business. Adrian Shoka, last but not least, good afternoon all. Good to see you, Adrian. Everybody. Dave, take
just quickly, I'm going to say we're going to move on now to the news and Pedro Porro, because that's what everybody is here for. We've tried to get absolutely everybody we could, so hopefully you appreciate and understand that. There are some people we missed. But keep getting your comments in and we'll keep bringing them up. And sorry to those who we missed. And I'll pick you out as we go along, like David O'Loughlin here, Wolves Finland, people like that we've missed. Big yourselves up. But look, Jack, let's get into it. Let's give the people what they're here for.
Here you are, everybody. Bit of a Pedro Porro bio for you. Last season, he got 5 goals and 4 assists. This season, he's already equaled that total goal contribution with 2 goals and 7 assists. So it does show that he's already building off of what already was a very good last season. 23 years of age. He's actually turning 24 quite soon, Dave. I think he's January 31st is the birthday. So Spurs will be wishing him a birthday just as they sign him. Right wing back. He can maybe play as a right mid in case we needed to switch to like kind of a back 4. He could play as like a, in a 4-4-2, something like that is what I was thinking. His height, 5 feet 8 inches, 1.73 meters tall. Certainly not the tallest of right backs, and maybe he could be taken advantage of, I think, at the back post. So this is what we'll get onto later. Who do you want maybe as that sort of backup right wing back, considering maybe he might not be the most aerially, let's say dominant. And then also in terms of the deal, I think it's around 48 million euros, says according to a few reports. I'm not sure, though, if the installments thing is still the case. I would imagine it is. Maybe they bumped it up to 48 million euros, but it's still paid in around 2 to 3 years and maybe over those 3 to 4 installments. Dave, are you maybe aware of that as well? Because that was part of the, kind of the initial details, was that Spurs were kind of structuring it over kind of this kind of 2 to 3 year sort of time span. And then they were going to also, kind of pay it in over 3 to 4 installments. But now it seems like maybe the bid, or at least the total fee, has been jumped up a little bit to 48 million euros, perhaps because Sporting were playing a bit of hardball with us. So I'm not sure maybe if the installments are still playing a factor. I imagine they would, because usually Spurs aren't going to pay that much money up front.
I reckon the fact that it's gone up to 48 million means that it's been done over 4 installments, and the 3 extra million is incentives for letting Tottenham do it over the longer installments rather than the 2 installments, because it would have been 45 if it was 2 installments. But the fact that it's jumped up 3 million, I would hazard a guess that it's because it's over 4 installments and it's going to take longer to pay. So the 3 million is an incentive so that we can get it over the 4 installments.
I completely lied on the birthday part. Actually, it's Danjuma who we're wishing a birthday to, actually, on January 31st, everybody. Big error by the flat cap there, everybody. It's Danjuma, let me correct myself, is going to be having his birthday on the 31st of January. But get ready to wish Danjuma a birthday, everybody. Let's bring him a birthday cake. But here are kind of the stats that we do like to sort of get into when kind of talking about Pedro Porro. And I sort of picked out some categories here, Dave, that I sort of just think would represent, right, a good sort of creative wingback, somebody that would have that creativity in those wide areas. So, of course, we're going to look at crosses. You have to look at that. We're also looking at the key passes there, which is a pass that leads directly to a shot on goal. I know your man Big H would love a stat like that, because that basically just means he's getting set up. Shot creating actions, just a fancy kind of way of looking at sort of chances created. Dribbles completed, how many times is he skinning past his man per game? And then shots total, how many times is he firing off a shot per game? And Dave, when you're comparing him to basically most leagues around Europe, and you're comparing him to most fullbacks around Europe, he's in the top percentiles. He's basically been one of the best this year in general. So your kind of initial impressions when you're seeing this, like when it comes to creativity, when it comes to maybe delivering from those wide areas, we are kind of signing one of the maybe the best kind of this season by the looks of things.
No, 100% we are, Jack. Look, for me, it's an issue, like I said, that's been long outstanding. We've tried so many times to get the position right, but we haven't. But first of all, I want to give credit to you and Isan for this, because this is a guy that you and Isan have been spouting about for quite some time now, in Pedro Porro. And we've even at the time when you said, no, look, this guy's good enough, he's going to be quality. Some people in our group chat, including me, kind of shut it down a little, where it was like, look, I want to wait a little bit longer to see what he can produce first. But look, Jack, at the end of the day, the likes of the crosses, the key passes, shot creating actions, dribbles completed, it's something that are, especially on the right side and in Session's case on the left side, we don't do. Yeah. We don't do. You look at Matt Doherty yesterday, Jack, I counted, and I didn't get them all, but I counted 10 times he got on the ball and passed it inside. Sometimes, especially in a game like yesterday, you need your fullback to be able to keep the weight, skin his man, and get balls into the box. Yeah. Now, with this guy's crossing ability, I actually predict that Kane, Son, and potentially Kulu are going to get a lot more goals because of it, because I've got some stats here from our right backs, Jack, alone. Yeah. So, now correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that Pedro Porro has 3 goals and 11 assists across all competitions this year for Sporting, in 25 games. Now, if Kevin De Bruyne was doing that, people would be jizzing absolutely everywhere, right? So it's insane stats. But Doherty, right wing back, 15 games, 1 goal. That's all he's produced. Emerson, 23 games, 1 goal, 1 assist. That's all he's produced. And Jed Spence has only played 41 minutes, so you can't really include him.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you look at the attack and output down the right, it's been non-existent unless we've had a bit of magic from Kulu. If you actually go back and look at a lot of our games, a lot of our attacks go down the left-hand side. A lot of them, whether it's Session or Perisic playing, because we don't have anyone to do anything down the right-hand side unless it is a bit of Kulu magic. And so for me, I think bringing in Pedro Porro adds a new dimension to our game. Perisic down one side, Porro down the other, which means Kane can concentrate on getting into the box rather than having to be the creator all the time. It means Son can start getting back to his runs into the box, into the back post, runs off in behind Harry Kane, because Pedro Porro will be able to find him from the right-hand side. And Kulu as well. You know, rather than him having to always go and babysit Doherty and Emerson and go out there to collect the ball off him, he would probably benefit from it, Jack, because he might be able to stay a bit higher, knowing that Pedro Porro can find him with that pass. He can start running in behind, knowing Pedro Porro has the ability to put it in behind for him. So it's going to add a new attacking dimension to our game. Now, look, like I said, it doesn't solve all our problems because defensively we're still weak. But this guy is good defensively. Make no mistake about it. I'm going to get more onto him.
And we'll get into that.
Yeah, but he is good defensively. But in terms of going forward, Jack, he's going to bring so much more creativity. But also, he's going to make our right-hand side, what's the right word? How do I put it?
I think it's just going to be more of a threat. It's going to be more, you can't disrespect it any longer, right? You have to take it more seriously.
Jack, but also, we'll become unpressable. Because if you look at it, you've got Romero and Pedro Porro. You're not going to keep pressing them because they're going to be able to find themselves out of it, whether it's taking on their man or passing out consistently. So that will hopefully, in my opinion, stop teams from pressing that right-hand side. Now, it won't stop the issue of them pressing through the middle and pressing the left-hand side. But I'm hoping that they will stop pressing that right-hand side, which then means we can use that as a tool to be able to get out a lot of times.
The other thing I like about Pedro Porro for me is that he's actually, if you ever doubted, maybe his, ability to cross the ball or his ability to maybe do it at the Premier League level, another good sign that he is a good striker of the ball, Dave, and that he is technically sound is that he does take corners and he does take set pieces from time to time for Sporting. And they've even trusted him to take a penalty or two from time to time with that team. So if he's trusted as for that Primera Liga side, that Sporting side, Dave, if he's one of the better strikers of the ball, because usually, right, when it comes to set pieces, if you're the one taking the corners, they're usually the one that trusts you kind of as one of the better strikers of the ball, one of the more technically sound players in the team. And if he's one of those with the Sporting side, that does maybe give us further encouragement that he can not only, Dave, put in a good cross from, maybe on the move, but he can do it from a standing position, right? He can do it from a dead ball situation. So that's also maybe further helpful. And it also shows that I think he has that technical ability to also do it. And Dave, the other one that was way, way too ahead of time, Dave, you gave me too many flowers, but cockeyed Steve saying, where's my flowers? I've been banging on about him for years. I tell him, Jacko, exactly right, Steve. When I did that Pedro Porro video, he was like, Dave, he was just all over. I think he even said it one day alone. He went through 2 toilet paper rolls when he got the "Here we go" announcement. And even he said, Dave, that's a big record for him because, he's not very young anymore, Steve. You can't really produce that type of output anymore, let's say. So he's quite excited, let's say, about this one, Steve is. He might be the most excited. He might be the most excited. Big up, my man. Good to see you in here. And don't worry, brother, I'll give you your due praise. Just going to quickly kind of get through some of his other sort of kind of, stats going forward. Of course, we were kind of comparing him earlier to all the fullbacks across 8 European leagues, and we were using him, from his like domestic league stats. We were using his Portuguese, his Primeira Liga stats, but now we're kind of just taking his stats from just the Champions League. So it's not like a huge sample size or anything. It's not like a huge, amount of minutes, but I do think it's appropriate to still compare him when you're kind of using, when he's in the highest, form of competition, the highest level of skill and everything, the highest level of opponents. And he did, naturally see his numbers drop off, because when he's playing for a team like Sporting, where he's one of the best teams in the league, he's going to dominate the ball. He's going to have plenty of opportunities to create. He's going to be breaking down those really tough, very regimented sort of Portuguese defenses. But then when he moves into the Champions League, he's going to be actually more of an underdog kind of team. He's going to be the one that's actually defending a bit more, not having as much opportunity to do much with the ball. So his numbers are going to naturally go down, I would say. But it's still good to see that last season he was in the top 20th percentile when it came to crosses. He was still firing off plenty of shots. As well. He was still, okay in the dribbles department, but we did see things like, the chances created and the key passes going down. This season, that was from last season. This season in the Champions League, he's gone up a bit in terms of the crosses, which is good to see. The dribbles completed went higher a bit as well. He is creating more chances than he was last season in the Champions League as well. And then it did seem like maybe the shots went down, maybe confusingly. I'm not sure why. But there you are in terms of kind of his Champions League numbers. And naturally so, they did kind of go down. But if we did actually want to compare, maybe his Champions League numbers, Dave, to the likes of, I think it is Emerson Royale. Emerson Royale played a very, very similar amount of minutes actually to Pedro Porro this season in the Champions League. So if you did want to maybe get some context, if you're kind of like confused about, comparing him to all of the fullbacks in the Champions League, let's just compare him to our boy Emerson here. This season in the Champions League, Dave, he basically doubled him in terms of crosses per game. He's also getting more key passes. He's nearly doubling him in terms of also chances created per game as well. He's getting way more times he's skinning past his man. It looks like, Dave, I mean, Emerson in the Champions League took him about 5 games to skin past one man, if you were to kind of do the math on that one. Whereas Pedro Porro is doing it about 1.5 times per game. And then shots total, actually, weirdly, Emerson, maybe from that game, I think against Frankfurt, where he had about 12 shots on goal. Maybe that's where like the numbers are inflated there. But yeah, exactly right. Should have had a hat trick. But if you did also want to compare him to kind of Emerson in the Champions League, you can see that he definitely still produced much better numbers. But I thought maybe, Dave, did you want to go into kind of the defensive numbers of Pedro Porro a little bit as well, and kind of maybe talk about that, or should we kind of get to the chat here? And
No. We've got some chats there to bring up. We'll bring them up, Jack, and then we'll start getting into some of the questions that you have.
Exactly right. Tabata Duda saying Conte deserves some credit. If we sign a center back as well, we should still sign a center back. The guy took bullets from everyone this month. People said he lost interest and would have instead gave a masterclass and was instead giving a masterclass in psychology.
Look. Yesterday, I seen a lot of people blaming Antonio Conte for sort of the first half performance, saying 5 defenders out there against Preston, this is shambolic. But I think when you see Pedro Porro come in, I even think when you see Edoji coming in next season, I think you'll realize that there are certain things that maybe you can question Conte on, but there's also certain things that you shouldn't be attributing to him. The likes of Doherty and Sessegnon passing inside, people asking, oh, well, it's up to him to get these players motivated. These are the wages he's paid. This is what he can do. But why would you attribute that to Conte when Doherty was passing it inside long before Conte arrived? Sessegnon's confidence and doing the same shit was happening long before Conte arrived. And some of these players we've seen in previous cup games in years gone by, these sort of performances in years gone by. So you can't attribute these things to Conte. Now, look, ultimately, Conte is the manager. He's always going to take the slack. But like you alluded to it in the press conference, that's because there's no owners, there's no Paratici to come down like they do in other countries like Italy to speak to the fans, tell them what's sort of going on. So Conte's had to take the brunt of absolutely everything on top of 3 of his friends dying. So obviously he hasn't been in the best of moods, and I fully understand it. Like if you had 3 of your best friends dying in such a short space of time, your head would be all over the place, let alone having to deal with the relentless questions, about the direction, January transfer window, this, that, and the other. When all he can do is give his target, say, I need this, this, and this, but it's up to everybody else above him to be able to bring them in. Look, I get people, I can understand people questioning Conte. I understand it. I don't agree with it. Like I said yesterday, I think if you bring in the right players in the goalkeeper, the centre backs, in the wing back areas, I think you'll see a much more improved style of play. Like yesterday, you seen how high Doherty and
Yeah.
Session were pushed yesterday. They weren't playing a back. We weren't playing a back five yesterday. We played a back three with them two pressed high. But the reason why we lacked so much creativity is because they couldn't do anything out wide, or they refused to do anything out wide in Doherty's case. That you can't put on Antonio Conte. It would look, you watch how much better it's going to look with Porro one side and Perisic down the other side. It's going to look sexy, Jack. Sexy football is back.
I see what he says here at the end. The bottom dude is saying people said he lost interest and was negative. Instead, he gave a masterclass
He told the
in
truth.
psychology. And also, it's something that I had to bring up, right? It's something that me myself as sometimes a host as well, and trying to sort of get the best out of, kind of the people we bring on to bottom dude. I had to ask that difficult question, right? Where it's like, is he maybe losing a bit of, kind of that fire? Is he losing a bit of that energy? And there really, for me, was kind of no shame in it if he actually had, because I feel like Dave brought up before, the losses of life and his to his friends, as well as close people that he had in his footballing career, as well as just in his personal life. It's just so difficult to go through that while you're already in an intense period of work. But then also we know that his life isn't made much easier as well on the footballing side of things when it comes to when it comes to Daniel Levy, and when it comes to the board and his future and all that sort of stuff, and constantly being kind of asked about his future as well. It's just not exactly, let's say, the easiest of situations. And he's even brought up before that he's going through kind of a tough time, and he keeps being asked about transfers, keeps being asked about injuries that he doesn't know about and things like that. And he's been able to sort of, I think, deal with it as best he could in his sort of style and his sort of manner. And I think he's shown that he's a tough cookie, Antonio Conte. And he's also as well somebody that I think, if he is, if anything, he shows that he is someone that does put his all and everything into what he does. Even if you think he gets it wrong, he does seem to be very adamant that he puts his all and puts his full self into what he does in his work.
Jack, I mean, I would be negative as well over recent times. It's not only that his friends have died, but he's just exposed the truth. Every Spurs fan knows what the problem has been at this club. Like, we all know that centre backs and that back line has been a massive issue. We all know it, and Conte's called it out. And look, if I was Conte, I would wake up negative every day. You look at it, right? He's bigged up Eric Dyer. He's come out, he said, and the reason why he said it is because he knew he wasn't getting a centre-back and he had to rely on him. This guy could be one of the best centre-backs in world football. But ultimately, Eric Dyer has completely let him down. So then this January, then he's talking about, the attributes of our centre-backs, that we probably need better centre-backs in here so that we can start pushing higher up the field, because that's the reason why we play the way we do, which I agree with, and I fully understand it. I really do. But my point is if you've already come in and you've tried one way, which was buttering the bollocks, slapping them on the ass, rubbing them on the head, telling them they're the greatest thing ever, get out there, go on, boy. You know what I mean? And then he lets you down time and time again. Of course you're going to end up being negative, because you're like, I mean, what do I have to do? I can't come out and criticize them personally, because when Jose Mourinho done it, he was crying. But then he's also at a point that he comes out and bigs up the players. Everyone's like, what are you doing? Then he comes out and criticizes them, and everyone's like, what are you doing? You can't do that. Even though people are saying, just come out and tell the truth. So he's in a lose-lose situation, Jack. It's like with some of the players he's given trust to, right? It's literally like you waking up and you're like, fuck me, Bird's out cheating on me again. Of course you're going to be negative every single day, Jack. Of course you are.
But he's at the same time, he's actually shown that he's a lot tougher than maybe some of the rest of us, and has been able to keep a good head on himself, maybe more so than the average folk, I would say, or than the average person. There's no shame in that. The bottom dude, big up, my man. Really do appreciate it, brother. And it's a really great comment that you make there. Wayne Bonner is joining us. Good to see you, Wayno. Saying just joined. Is Porro definite? Any news on a center back? It's definite, Wayno. We've gotten the here we go from Fabrizio Romano as well. It seems like he's flown over to London. I think last night he might have, or this morning he's flown over to London as well. He's in the midst of taking the pictures. He's doing the medical. He's already agreed personal terms, Wayne, all that good kind of stuff. He will be a Spur tomorrow or today. You will be seeing the pictures. Don't you worry. If you're kind of a till he's holding the shirt kind of guy, he'll be holding that shirt. Don't you worry, Wayno. And then also any news on a center back, we'll get into it. But the news is, in case you need to go quickly or anything, Wayne, is that Spurs kind of made like a verbal bid and kind of made a, underbid for a center back over in the Bundesliga. His name is Hincapie, but big yourself up, Wayno. Appreciate it, my man. And then Foggy Foam.
I'll go and get it for you, Jacko. I'll go and get it.
No, I got it here. He's just a big thumbs up. Big thumbs up here. Good man, Foggy. Really do appreciate it. Hopefully you're enjoying the content.
Do you know why he's putting in the thumbs up, Jacko? Because there's 390 people watching and less than 100 likes. He wants everyone to smash that like button. That's what that's about. Big up Foggy Foam. You tell him, obliterate that like button. You want Porro, you got to smash it.
Listen to the Foggy. SOF says Danjuma and Porro are both great 1v1. That's what this team has been missing. If you look at the teams playing the best football, they have 3 or 4 players that can go 1v1. Players that are direct, right? Players that are positive, that can be able to, fearlessly take on their man time after time after time.
Where did our creativity
we need more of these players.
Where did our creativity come from yesterday? Sonny getting on the ball, beating a player and taking him out of the game. For large parts of that first half yesterday, all we spent was playing it in front of them. And that's what the team like Preston want. They want to see everything being played in front of them. We didn't have anyone that wanted to get on the ball, take people out of the game, which then it averts, creates space. It means you're pulling other people that are sitting back deeper out of position to come and engage, which means then you're opening up space in behind for runners, to be able to play the ball in behind. So Sof is absolutely spot on here. We do miss players that have that bit of quality about them that says, okay, I'm going to skin you. Catch me if you can. We don't really have that in this team. And I think Porro, Danjuma, we've seen that yesterday. What I loved about Danjuma yesterday, actually, quickly. First touch, ball into him like Harry Kane, holds it up, gets turned, and then wants to play. Only that the ball from Kulu was just got out. But, I like that. It's positive. But you're spot on. We do miss that player, that exciting player that can beat people. And we've always had it at Tottenham. We had Aaron Lennon. We had Gareth Bale to do it. David Ginola. We've always had them sort of players. Kulu, I would argue, does it. Son hasn't been on the boil a lot this season, but yesterday he done it. So bringing these guys in is a lot more positive, especially in the wing-back area. You go back to Brighton last season, you go back to Brentford last season, which could have easily cost us top 4, by the way. They just sat back. Because of how good we were going forward, they sat back, put all their players in behind the ball and said, break us down. But every time the ball, and in them games, your area, the area for you to get at them is out wide. So you need somebody to be able to get on the ball, skin their man and deliver that ball because they're matching you up 1-for-1. But the reason why teams do it to us now, they know Matt Doherty ain't going to go on the outside. They're like, brilliant. He's just going to pass it back inside all day. I don't have to do that. If you're a left back coming up against Matt Doherty, you're absolutely buzzing. Same as Ryan Sessegnon. Ryan Sessegnon tried to cross the ball yesterday, but how many times did he cut back inside? Again, if you're a fullback, you're absolutely loving it. You're like, this is honestly, someone bring me out the decking chair and a fucking cigar. This is going to be so easy.
Yeah, I completely agree on that, Dave. And big up SOF. It's good to see you in here, my friend. Paul Van been saying Sessegnon checks inside even more than Doherty. Maybe you have to keep a double tab on those, Dave, to see which one is checking inside even more.
I exposed him yesterday.
Yano 7. The notepad, you can't just you just watch it back, and probably you missed a few even, Dave. You might have missed a few.
I did.
Yano 71, big up David and Jack. Good to see you, Yano, and really do appreciate your support of myself, my man. You're very kind to me. Conan Taki's in the house saying Udogie and Piero next season. Let's fucking go. And then also as well, from Conan. Yeah, that's right, from Conan.
I think he's trying. So I think that's his name, Conan Takai there. So I think he's just saying Conan there. That's his name. That's how you say it.
Big up Conan, my man. And Porro and Udogie, dude, it's good. It's probably, it's kind of like, it's probably what we felt like for a bit, maybe with Kyle Walker and Danny Rose, my man. It's kind of just like, you just feel so confident in both wingbacks and both fullbacks. And when's the last time we've had that? It's been a while since we've probably gone into a season where we're really, truly confident in both sides of the fullbacks. Big up, my man. Good to see you.
No, big up, lad. Big up. Very good point. I mean, it's something I was sort of thinking about last night, lying in the bed. It's like, kind of can't wait to next season. If we can get Jed Spence on loan and he can go and have a good couple of months to the end of the season on loan. You got Pedro Porro with Spence's back up one side. You got Perisic and Udogie the other side. Very exciting going forward, my man. Wayne O'Bonnell says, great to see you back, Davo. You've been missed. But you know what, lad? I was only saying to Jacko yesterday, I was missing being on streams, but You know, sometimes you've got to take yourself out of the situation to sort of clear the mind to come back again, Wayno. And look, like I said yesterday, the big man's back and he's here to stay. Like it or lump it, put up with me. Big up, Wayno.
Good man, Wayne. Good man, Wayne. And don't let Messi go, Wayne. I need you stopping that plane. Ricky Nato says, big up, brothers. Our right-hand side is going to be frightening. It's just looking so good now. Kulusevski, Pedro Porro, Christian Romero. It's basically the best side of our pitch all of a sudden. It's gone from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. It's now the best side of the pitch. I would say, Ricky. Brian Dempsey, just seeing we could be trying to side Jude Bellingham from Birmingham. But will be a summer transfer. Dave, I actually thought this was like, I did see this news, but I couldn't even tell that this was like a joke or something like that, because I really thought that there's no
way
16,
17.
But then there's Jude and Jube, and then it just made me think of like Carlos
No, it's
Bellamoon.
not Jude, it's Joby.
Made me think of the Peter Crouch podcast, Carlos Bellamoon or whatever it was that, Spurs be signing. But, and you know anything about him, Dave? Could he be just as good as his brother, or is, what do you make of this?
I think he's living a bit off his brother's name right now, if I'm being brutally honest, and that's where the sort of hysteria comes from about this guy. Can he potentially be like his brother? Look, I've only seen him briefly in an FA Cup appearance, I believe, last year off the bench for Birmingham City. He done okay, didn't really do too much. Let's wait and see, because as far as I'm aware, I believe Liverpool are trying to tie up Jude Bellingham. They're also looking to offer his father a job in the scouting department as an incentive to get that deal done, and also bring his brother to the club as well. I reckon there's going to be a lot of people in for Joby Bellingham. By the way, I read an article recently, he can declare for Ireland, which I hope he does. So look, let's wait and see on that one, but I have seen the news.
Good to see you. Joby Bellingham. Gotcha. Big up Brian Dempsey. Good to see you, my man. Catman Jess is in the house. Big up David and Jack. Appreciate your support, Catman. Thanks for tuning in, my friend. Patty Hardnett as well. Afternoon, gents. One more in before Tuesday. All going well. Good to see you in here, Patty. Hopefully your Sunday is going according to plan. Big up yourself. And then also thanks for joining us as well, my man.
Yeah,
hopefully we get you on some more. Need you on some more, Patty. Get used to it. And then Micah's in the house, online Spurs therapy. Thank you very much, Micah. Thanks for tuning in, my friend. Tom THFC, big up Jack and Dave. Come on, you Spurs. Big yourself up, Tom. And then Paul G, love to see you back, Dave. Big up Jack. Come on, you Spurs. Big up Paul G.
Good to be back, Paul. Good to be back, my man. I appreciate everything. You checking in on me the last week or so, my man. I really appreciate it. Big up, Paul. It doesn't go unnoticed, brother.
Good man. And then Wayne Bonner, Messi is going nowhere. Sounds like I'll be seeing you at the airport then, Wayne. We'll be stopping that plane on the way to Sevilla. We'll be there with maybe Messi kind of postcards or whatever, just, telling him, don't do it. So the Spurs future is with us. We have to take care of the prophecy. We have to take care of the prophecy, the Messi.
Just quickly, Jack, Ryan Hashburn says Pedro Porro will undertake his medical on Monday, according to Fabrizio Romano. I'm just going to go into a little bit about Kelleher while I check to see if that's true. But apparently, Caoimhín Kelleher's contract is coming to an end at Liverpool, Jack, and Tottenham have been rumoured to be interested in Caoimhín Kelleher. So it'll be interesting to see, come the summer if he is on our radar. A very good goalkeeper, by the way, very good. If you know anything about Ireland, they're stocked in that position.
Exactly.
They're producing some really good goalkeepers. Even the young lad we've got in our under-21s, very highly rated around Ireland. Bringing in Caoimhín, I think, will be a good bit of business. He could be a backup but he can play in goals for the next 10 years. He's that sort of age. He's got a very good mentality, very good shot stopper, and decent with his feet as well.
Yeah. And would you say, like, between him and Bazunu, like, is there a big difference between the two, or would you say that kind
Bazunu's
of both?
Better.
Yeah. Would you say, though, Kelleher still has a huge future? Is like going to be one of the up and coming, goalkeepers? Okay. So you still think he could be one of maybe a top?
Caoimhín Kelleher is going to be a top level goalkeeper for sure. Same as Bazunu. It's just unfortunate that they find themselves battling out for number one when we could have really done with one for the last 10 years, and then one now coming through. But look, they're both very, very good goalkeepers. But Bazunu is better all around. Bazunu's a great shot stopper. Brilliant reactions, but I think what sets Bazunu and Kelleher apart, and the reason why Bazunu holds Ireland's number one jersey, is because of Bazunu's distribution, Jack. I've seen that a guy kick the ball from his own box into Adam Ida's chest, into the striker's chest, into their feet. His distribution is out of this world. It's as good as Ederson's.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. And that's such an important factor for me is being in the goalkeeper. I just think it's just what people have to get used to. It really is. Like the modern era, goalkeepers are being pressed way more than they ever were. They're not also able to just pick it up like in the old days and do and just sort of drop kick
Yeah.
it. You just need
Yeah.
to be good with you just need to be good. You just need to be good with the ball at your feet. It's just a whole different position than what it used to be. I just don't think you can be. I think maybe Nick Pope sort of gets away with it to a degree, but it's hard to be, I think, just a world class shot stopper. I think if you really want to have a truly long career, it seems like as a goalkeeper, you need to be good with the ball at your feet, I think, because you could even see with a guy like Nick Pope, once that, shot stopping ability goes away, he's never been great with his feet. He could fall into kind of a bit of a Hugo sort of kind of
Mm,
trap where then he's not very useful after that. So you do need people that are good with their feet. That's how I sort of see it, at
yeah.
least. But big up, my
Spot
man.
on.
And then,
Big up. But look, Jack, we'll keep kicking on with some more of the stats and get a few questions, and then we'll get back to some more super chats.
exactly right here. And we're going to look at maybe some of the defense kind of, contributions of Pedro Porro. This is where it's a bit of a mixed review, right? Where some people kind of are a bit worried about some of his defensive numbers, just a bit worried about some of his defensive ability. Don't get me wrong. I do think it probably is maybe his weakness. It's not where his strengths lie. But to say that he's a poor defender, to say that he's a bad defender, I don't think is true. I don't think it's true. And we'll kind of get into it. But the really to explain, in case you ever go into FB Ref or any of those sort of kind of stat websites or anything, when you do look at when you do look at his defensive stats, you might be a bit alarmed. But if I were to add a bit of context to it, he plays to a team that is going to be, like I said before, one of the better teams in the Premier Liga. They're going to have more of the ball than most of the teams in his league too. So they're really not going to have that many chances or that many opportunities to have to win the ball back. They're not going to really be defending to the hilt. They're actually going to be probably more often deep in the other team's half trying to create. So it's kind of why actually some of his defensive numbers don't really look all that great, or he doesn't really have that many defensive contributions. And I think that's just because he's playing for a team basically that, like I said before, it just doesn't really, have
Mm,
too many chances to try to win the ball back. It's more often the case that they actually have the ball. But when you take him into the Champions League, where then he's going to be coming up against, let's say, better opposition, better, opponents, better attacks, he's going to find himself defending a whole lot more. So I think if you were to look into his defensive stats, if you're ever curious, anybody, if you did want to deep dive into it, I would take more seriously some of those Champions League numbers that he had, because he's coming up against better opponents. And then as well, he doesn't really, he's not playing for a team that's going to be having 60% possession consistently or 70% possession in
mm,
games. He's going to be coming up against teams that actually more often might have more possession than Sporting, and he'll be defending more. So that's when he's truly going to be tested. And so last season, defensive numbers wise, he really wasn't actually all that great to begin with. Especially, I think the one that I would point out there for me, Dave, I don't really want to look too much into the others, but the one that sticks out to me is the fact that last season in the Champions League, he's getting skin passed at least 2 times per 90, and that could hurt you, right? Like you go into a game and you're guaranteed, at least, Dave, the average for him was 2 times per 90. You don't want to see that, I think, as a wing back, because that does mean right there you could find yourself getting kind of punished at a really high level for, getting burned, that many times. And he's in the bottom 3 percentile, Dave. So it showed that compared to any other fullback in his position in the Champions League, there were basically not many other people that were getting skin past more than he was last season.
yeah, I can understand that, but you got to remember the teams that Sporting come up against, they are going to be more or less on the back foot the whole time.
No, and
Uh,
they're complete underdog in the Champions League.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think with Tottenham that'll probably improve a little bit more because you're expecting us to probably be able to compete a bit more.
But Dave, maybe to not let you worry too much, he made huge, huge strides, Dave. Look at like the color, change there. Huge,
This
huge
is what I
strides
like
in
about
terms
him.
of his defensive numbers. So the way I looked at it was maybe right, like we said, weaknesses are maybe some of his defensive abilities. But to say that he's a useless defender, to say that he's a poor defender, I don't think it's true, because he clearly right here, Dave, has made huge contributions. He's made huge strides in trying to improve that side of his game. He looks to be a whole lot more aggressive. He's getting in more tackles. He's dribbling more, or he's tackling more dribblers. So he's doing a lot better in the one-on-one, Dave. Last season, right? Look at that number. He's getting dribble past, what was it, 2.23
Mm,
times? This time it's 0.69. So that is a huge, huge improvement there. Tackles and interceptions are quite high. The blocks are doing decently well too. So all of a sudden, he went for kind of looking like one of the worst kind of defensive sort of fullbacks, at least with the defensive skills last season, to being one of the better ones actually this year in the Champions League. So I think
Yeah.
that's a good sign that he made huge improvements.
No, it is. It's a brilliant sign, Jack. But anyone that goes in and does a bit more research into Porro, you'll actually find out he celebrates blocks on tackles. He
That's good to
celebrates
see.
them.
That's good to
You know,
see.
like he's giving the roar to the crowd, the fist pump. It's like Romero's mentality in a right wing back who's also good going forward. It's like I think they can strike up a real bromance. So this is what I was saying earlier on, Jack. Teams are not going to have a nice time going down that side. Pedro Porro is aggressive. He's a hothead, Jack. He's just as hot-headed as Romero at times. Now, look, that can also lead to bookings, but, it's like Romero. You can't take that out of the guy. That's what makes him. That's what gives him that edge, that competitive edge. He's having that aggression,
The
celebrating.
Premier League promotes that, though, too. The Premier League, welcomes those types of players, right? If you want to be that type of player, the Premier League is going to welcome you with open arms.
That right-hand side is going to be nasty to attack against, but it's also going to be press resistant as well. Yeah, I'm really excited to see the Pedro, Porro, and Romero combination. I think they're going to develop a real bromance. I think you'll see the two of them make tackles, walking by, high-fiving each other, chest pumping each other. Honestly, I'm excited to see these because, everyone talks about Pedro Porro's technical ability, but they don't talk about the aggressive nature of the guy. And it's very similar to Romero, very similar mentality all around. And that serves well for a defender. You look at Romero, he's head and shoulders above anybody else we've got because he has that want, that desire, that hunger to win the ball, celebrates tackles, blocks, this, that, and the other. And Porro's the exact same. It's going to be good to watch.
It's going to be good to watch. And like I said, everybody, in case you were ever worried about his defensive numbers, he's made huge strides. And where I would really look into it is not like his Primera Liga numbers. It's more actually his Champions League numbers. It's, I think, where you get a better assessment. Yeah. And then also, actually, if you were to compare him to somebody who at least I think is an okay defender and actually probably the better defender, at least right now, the better defensive wingback that we have to choose from, I personally think is Emerson. At this moment in time, even if you don't rate him defensively, I do think he is still the best one we have to choose from of the more defensive wingbacks. And he's actually getting better numbers in the Champions League defensively than even Emerson was. Emerson really didn't have all that great of a Champions League campaign. The only thing that maybe Emerson does do pretty well at is sort of kind of being a, not someone that you could take advantage of in the air. He does, clear up, maybe is good at maybe kind of cleaning up at the back post. And you don't really find too many people that are winning headers over him, kind of at the back post. Whereas maybe Porro, that could be a chance there that maybe you could take advantage of him in the air. But I don't know if there's much you can really, criticize him for that or anything like that. But Dave, it's kind of really all the stats that I really kind of wanted to sort of touch on and kind of highlight on was just that, if you were to look into the defensive numbers, it's not as poor as you think. You have to go into a bit more context. You have to do a bit more deep diving into it. And then when it comes to the numbers going forward, I mean, let's be honest, he's absolutely terrific. Like he's going to be amazing for us. But I think we do have maybe some super chats to get to here, and then we have some questions I think to ask about.
Ask me some questions on Porro because I have some things I want to say. But we'll get to some of these super chats first. The bottom, do a big up, my man.
And he's saying, looking at Sessegnon, do you think we should have brought in another left wing back in the summer instead of Udogie? An injury to Perisic could cost us the season. It's a tough one to bottom dude because we did kind of go into this where we thought it was going to be a make or break season for Sessegnon because he's been a while. He's been around a long time. Yes, he had a good few games under Antonio last season, but we did kind of think, he can't, continue to sort of get away with sort of this kind of, backup kind of role. Like he needs to sort of kind of make a place for himself in this squad. And he's really failed, it feels like, this season. And probably the reason maybe he wasn't even sold in the summer is probably because Antonio Conte did kind of give him a lot of praise towards the back end of last season. And it did kind of seem like he was probably favored to be kind of next to Udogie as kind of the future as the left wing back. Perisic was going to sort of kind of maybe teach them a thing or two or just sort of be that guiding influence. But by the looks of things, Sessegnon has absolutely no future, I think, with this club. I don't even know if he has much of a future in the Premier League, if I'm going to be honest, at the rate
he's
at.
Jack. He's got a future. Make no mistake about that. Look, let's be brutally honest, right? Conte was faced with the homegrown issue, the English players. Now, the reason why Reguilon was shipped out and Sessegnon stayed is because Sessegnon's English. Now, people say, Well, why would he keep Sessegnon around? Because if you're Antonio Conte, Jack, you're faced with the option of keeping Sessegnon or registering one of the younger lads and having a smaller squad to work with because you're not really going to use them. If you're in his position, what would you do? You would register Sessegnon in the hopes that you can get more out of him. But believe me, until we sign better English players, he has a future at this club, Jack.
If it's the English quota could be saving him to bottom dude, and maybe that's probably the reason. I think Dave could be right there, but it does feel like he's failed. It's in the make or break season, he's already broken by the looks of things. Dark
He was
Sun G.
broken before this season. I remember we had a debate with Benji from We Are Tottenham TV, and I went early in the summer. I was like, look, Tanya, this guy ain't going to cut it. He's not going to make it,
Mm.
And look at the result of it. He hasn't made it. He's regressing. But
It
trust me,
was a
until we
bold
sign better
prediction.
English players, put up with these guys.
It was a bold prediction at the time, Dave, only to be made, look very, very sensible right
Do you know
now.
what, Jack? I like to think they're bold predictions, but I went early on Romero. I said, this guy's better at his age than what Virgil van Dijk is. He's going to be world class. Went on to win a World Cup. I went early on Sessegnon. I said he's not going to be make it. Proven right. Same on Winks, Doherty, all these people. People call them bold predictions. I call them educated predictions, Jack.
Oh, okay. Dark Sun G says, I agree. We missed wingback that can, I agree. We missed wingback that can do 1v1. Look at why Fulham and Brighton are playing way better than Blues and Liverpool and even ranked higher than them at the moment. He's kind of bringing up a good point here, Dave, that the fact that the wingbacks do need to be good in the one-on-one situations and skidding past their man, because in order to put in a good cross, you need to create a bit of separation, right? You need to be able to create a bit of space for yourself. And it feels like Doherty doesn't always have the pace or really that burst of acceleration to sort of create the space for himself. Emerson often maybe does create the space for himself, but then the cross is usually very much lacking. And then in the case of Sessegnon, can't really do either. Really struggles to skin past his man to create the space. And then even if he does have a little bit of space, just smacks the ball right into his defender seemingly every single time. So I'm with you, Dark Sun G. It's actually that one-on-one ability that's really important, is how they are able to sort of skin past their man and be able to sort of create, chances just on their own. And also someone like Pedro Porro, if he gets that bit of separation out wide, as we know, he can whip in a wicked cross. So all he needs is just get that bit of separation from his defender.
Jack, that crossing comes down to the technical ability. Like, even how many times has the ball come out to Doherty or Sessegnon? You've seen it yesterday. They're slow. The first touch is not always the best, but it's also how you wrap your foot around the ball to get the curl on the ball to be able to get it into the box. Sessegnon doesn't have it. Doherty doesn't have it, but Pedro Porro does. He's able to wrap that, and that's why he barely hits the first man, and that's why Sessegnon always hits the first man, because Sessegnon cannot wrap his foot around the ball to get enough curl on it to bend it round, whereas Pedro Porro can.
Yeah, big up Dark Sun G, my man. And by the looks of things too, he could also probably be maybe better than Doherty defensively, better than, maybe even Emerson defensively. Dark Sun G, you don't even know. I guess we'll find out. Big up, brother. To bottom dude also asking, and I can understand why we are looking at Hincapie, because he can play on the left too. Hincapie is going to be a shrewd signing if it happens. We got some good questions on it, the bottom dude. Don't you worry. But what I would say is we were linked with him for some time. Like, we were linked with him last season, I recall. Actually, we were taking a look at him. Was it even last January? We might have been taking a look at him, if I'm not mistaken, or at least his name did kind of come up. Then we maybe had a few kind of looks at him over the summer. Yet he's coming up again now in January. It is one of those players that has sort of been linked with Spurs over a long time, which suggests that we've been keeping a long look at him. I thought he had a really good World Cup for the likes of Ecuador, showed that he could probably play in a back four. The only concern I have about him, Duda, is a lot of people who watch him quite often do say he is very, very raw, and say that he still has a lot of kind of, things to kind of flush out, or kind of some things to still develop on. But it is also the chance that we end up getting a guy with a really high potential and a really high ceiling. And you might end up signing a center back that you never have to replace for a long time. And also having two really young up and coming center backs like Romero and Hincapie, it does sort of make sense as well. It does sort of make sense. And two South American center backs as well, like top notch South American center backs for the future.
And it makes your future look a lot brighter. It makes it look a bit more exciting than what we have. Like, you look at maybe some of our exciting youngsters over the last few years. Jack Clark, dog shit. Sessegnon, dog shit. Who else am I missing? There's probably a couple of others there. Dog shit. then you look at some of the players that we're starting to bring in, there's excitement there. And it's like a renewed excitement instead of going, oh, we have to deal with these idiots again. And we know they're useless, you know? So it just brings that bit of excitement again. But you've also got to add in the experienced players in and around them to make that full, complete team. So hopefully that can be done.
He has elements of being kind of the modern defender too, to Bond Duty. He's a bit shorter, right? He's like only 6 feet, but he's very, very quick, left-footed, good on the ball by the looks of things too. So there is some elements to him that sort of make him, you can see why he has such a high ceiling. That's for sure. Really
Jacko,
appreciate your, yes.
I just need a quick number one. I'll be back.
No worries. Just going to say hello to a few more people. Anthony Rose, big up, Dave. Glad you're back on, pal. I hope all is good from Australia. I hope you're good down under, Anthony. And good to see you in here, my friend. And thank you for saying hello to Dave as well. Ian Ferguson is in the chat. Afternoon,
I'm good,
Ian.
Anthony. Thank you.
Good to see you, Ian Ferguson. Afternoon, all. Hopefully you're keeping well. Terry Wright's in the building. Big up, gents. Good to see you, Terry. Hopefully you're keeping well, my friend. And that Dark Sun G asking, Winks Sanchez was our future, weren't they? What's really actually funny about Sanchez as well is just yesterday, everybody, I know he wore the captain's armband, and I know like we were really upset about that and everything. And he didn't really have all that bad of a performance, but it is sort of kind of, I think, hilarious the fact that with Sanchez just quickly that he is denying moves away to teams where he could be getting more minutes. Like Sanchez has barely really featured at all since Romero has come back. He hasn't really been getting very many minutes at all this season to begin with. And he's kind of sort of had that his whole career with, feels like Tottenham. Like he's kind of just, he's happy. He's not reluctant. He's actually quite happy to sort of be warming the bench at this team. And when he's actually been given I guess this January, he's been given a few options or a few chances to maybe get like a loan move away or, you know, a move away from Spurs. He's actually denied it. Apparently he's reluctant to leave actually Tottenham Hotspur, which is deeply frustrating because he actually takes up one of those sort of kind of foreign spots, I believe, in the team that right needs to be given to someone like a Hincapie. In order for us to bring in players like Hincapie, we actually need to get rid of players who take up that foreign spot in the squad like Sanchez. And to see players like Sanchez who've been here for years and years, young up and coming talents at the time who never truly made it, who have just been happy to sit the bench and kind of ruin their whole chance of maybe developing and kind of going elsewhere and getting minutes. Like Sanchez has basically wasted, I feel like, the majority of his, you know, developmental years, like as a center back. Like he knew that he didn't make it at Spurs. He could have maybe pushed for a move elsewhere to try to, you know, re-find himself, but he's actually been happy just to sit the bench at this team, which is really just a sad case. It's just a sad case that we have players that are just, you know, happy to warm the bench, really.
And this has been a major part of the problem over the last few years, Jack. You know, people on high wages, comfortable, not ready to leave. But then, you know, you make them captain. I don't know. Still not over that, by the way. Still not over Sanchez being captain yesterday.
Simon Davies in the house. Good to see you, Simon. Hopefully you're doing well, my man. But Dave, I got some questions for you off the back of that sort of stats kind of show and everything like that. What do you think of what do you think with Pedro Porro? Will he instantly bring, you know, something down that right-hand side that we've been missing? What is he going to bring that we've basically been missing all season?
Attacking output, Jack. I went through the numbers. Doherty, 15 games, 1 goal. You know, 0 assists. You know, you look at Emerson, 1 goal, 1 assist, and I think they've come since the new year. So, I mean, it's, well, that goal did anyway against Man City. So, like, you know, it's we haven't had an attacking outlet down that right-hand side. And when Kulu's been out injured, it's been completely non-existent. Look, one thing I'll always give credit to Emerson for is the reason why he's in the firing line so much, or Spurs fans hate him so much, is because he continues to do the right thing. He continues to put himself in the firing line by still trying to do the right thing, whereas Doherty doesn't. Doherty wants to play it safe inside. In fact, I would go as far as saying Doherty has also took inspiration off Winks of being a stat padder. You know, he's probably one of them ones that walks in at halftime, at full time. Show me my stats. Passing percentage, 80%. Brilliant. Okay, Matt, but they're all 5 yards inside. You know, you didn't do anything with the ball. In my system, I need you to be able to have the vision to play forward into Harry Kane, into Kulu, beat a man, make something happen. That's what Pedro Porro is going to bring, Jack. He's going to bring consistency down that right-hand side going forward. The crossing, if anyone goes and looks at some of the crosses this guy puts in, I mean, just go and look at some highlight reels of the crosses. Son is going to have a field day running at the back post. Yeah. Kane is going to have a field day running into the box. Now, there's another argument that comes down. It was sort of put yesterday. But me and Sean highlighting it in the watch along, it's like, We don't have anybody getting into the box when the ball goes out wide. But then I countered that, and well, if I was on that pitch, why would I? I know the cross isn't coming in. I know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to pass it back inside. What is the point? So hopefully now with Perisic down one side and Porro down the other side, you see players gambling and getting into the box a lot more. I believe it'll also make the right-hand side of our defence press resistant. Because don't get me wrong, teams are still going to press us for the first while, but they're going to find out very, very quickly between Pedro, Porro, and Romero, they have the ability to play out through that. So that will also make us less pressable on that right-hand side, which is a huge plus. But Jack, I can't wait. It means now we're going to have a different dimension. Not only are we going to have attacking output down the left, but also down the right. But also, Porro is good defensively. A lot teams have been aimed at him a bit, maybe about his height. Can he handle the physicality? When you've got the mentality that someone like Porro and Romero possesses, height is not a problem.
It's also having that dog in you, though, Dave. Right? You have to be a fighter. Yes. You have to be fearless. Right? We've seen small players be able to make it in the Premier League. They just kind of have to be tough. They have to be a little nasty. They have to sort of not be intimidated or anything. You know, even look at players like Azpilicueta for the likes of Chelsea. Right? A right back, a center back, and honestly, not a tall guy or a big imposing guy of any kind, but just sort of tough as nails. Right? And that's what really you need, is just to sort of be kind of tough as nails for the Premier League. And then you can make it. You don't need to always be the biggest, but just need to have it kind of up here, I think, physically as well.
But like I said earlier on as well, Jack, I encourage everybody just to go back and look at just what he's done against us alone. You'll see exactly what he's going to bring to our team. Exactly. You know, if he's pressed and there's no passing options, no problem. I'll dribble by you. You know, he can dribble on the outside. He can dribble on the inside. You know, he's absolutely quality. He has a passing range on him. Brilliant. But not only that, though, Jack, you know, he also has the potential to hit the ground running. He's been playing in Ruben Amorim's, I think I got that right, Ruben Amorim.
Yep.
He's 3-4-3 system, right? So he's used to playing as that wing back. So, you know, it gives him the potential to be able to hit that ground running, which is a huge plus because he already knows the system. So in that system, I know Amorim's is more attacking than what Conte's is, but the wing backs are important in both systems, so he has a chance of hitting that.
It's not going to be too unfamiliar. It's not going to be too different. You know, it's not going to be unfamiliar. You know, weird. You know, kind of system for him to get used to. Like maybe with Basuma. Basuma's had a tough time, you know, to adjust to this system. Porro might be different. It might be, you know, maybe a bit more seamless for him to sort of step into it. One thing for me that I think he would bring is that we're definitely missing is sort of also that early cross, that early ball in. It feels like, I think with Doherty and Emerson, they have to take it. They have to do things kind of one at a time. It feels like, sort of, Dave, right? They have to size up their man, decide whether to actually skin past their man or not. And then they do try to attempt it. Don't usually pick their head up. Usually then afterwards find the time to pick their head up. It's just all a bit too slow. It's just all not maybe proactive or kind of intelligent, I must be enough, you know, from our wingbacks. And that's what I think Pedro Porro is going to bring, Dave, is that he's already, by the time he's picked the ball up, he knows like where maybe the scan of like where Harry Kane is. He knows where Sonny is. He knows whether they're going to be making runs into the box. And what he can do, Dave, is that he can play that ball early. But not only can he play that ball early, he can play it on time and he can play it accurately and hit it in with a bit of fizz, hit it in with a bit of whip as well, so that it is onto their feet. Because, you know, even if you taught Emerson or Doherty to play it earlier, they don't have the technical ability to be able to find, you know, Sonny or Kane. They're just going to overhit it. They're not going to be able to bend it enough or anything like that. They just won't have the sheer ability to do it, because we already went over this earlier, but Pedro Porro, as we know, is a great striker of the ball. He's one of the best strikers of the ball in that, you know, Sporting team. So what he can do for me, Dave, what he's going to be bringing that we've been missing this whole season is that early ball in, but also that early ball in that's got a bit of quality behind it.
That's stuff we were doing last season, Jack, some of them early balls in, and we were benefiting from that. You know, Harry Kane was able to get a few goals from that. Sonny was able to get a few goals from that. But, Jack, what you're alluding to is more the weight of the cross. You know, he knows if he wants to go near post, the weight to put on it, into middle, the weight to put on it, or the back post, the weight to put on it. A bit like Kulu, it comes with being really technical, having that feel on the ball, and you just know with practice exactly what way to strike it. Whereas when you look at Emerson, Doherty, Sessegnon, it's almost like, oh, just get it in the box. As long as it gets anywhere into the box, it doesn't matter. But there's no real purpose behind their crossing. It's more just get it into the box rather than looking at the runner and going, right, this needs to be whipped in, round behind the defence. You know, Harry Kane's running through the middle. He can slide in and get on the end of it. It's more the weight of the cross. But not only that, Jack, he can take set pieces. The guy can take free kicks. He can take corners. And he can take penalties, which is a huge plus because now you've got Perisic one side using his left foot, and you've also got Porro who can now use his right foot. So it gives you different angles to be able to use on your set pieces, which will be a huge plus for, what's the set piece guy's name again, Jack?
Gianni Vio.
Gianni Vio. It gives him more things to work with as well, which is also a huge plus. So he brings a lot of technical aspect to the team. Hopefully he'll make our play look a lot better, Jack.
Can I ask you this question, Dave? Can you put, this one was brought up before, and even someone in the chat, I believe, brought it up at one stage, and it's something that's been on Sean's mind, I know as well. Can you play two attack-minded wingbacks in Perisic and Porro at the same time with our leaky defense?
You look at games like yesterday, Bentancur and Bissouma, they didn't really push too far forward. It was the same with Portsmouth, and I presume when you look at them games, that's sort of where Antonio Conte wants to get to with this system. If you look back at last season as well, is that the two midfielders, they don't have to push on. They're more or less sitting in the middle, ready to recycle the ball. So in effect, you've got your wing backs out wide. You've got Kane, Son, and Kulu, right, with maybe potentially one of the midfielders, maybe sometimes gambling, getting beyond them or getting up with them. But generally, you'll still have the two of them sitting in the middle. So if teams do break, your left-sided and your right-sided centre-backs can push out and act like full-backs. And you've also got your centre-back and the two players in the midfield. So you should be solid if teams get the ball and break. I don't think it should be a problem, because Antonio Conte's system relies a lot on the wing-backs getting forward and providing a lot of creativity, a lot of width. So which means then he has to counter that through the middle with the two midfielders. And with the two midfielders, like I said, they don't really ever get ahead of play. So I'm not really too worried about it because it's simple. You just instruct them not to get ahead of play whatsoever because you're so confident with all your players in the forward areas that they can create without having to get the midfield involved. And the only time they need to get involved is if you're switching the ball from left all the way to the right or vice versa. So for me, I don't really see it being too much of a problem, Jacko.
For me, the way I would answer this question here, everyone, is just that we've been kind of targeted in the past with having a very sort of poor right-hand side technically, right? We've had at times where it's Sanchez and, Doherty or Sanchez and Emerson. And if you were the opposition, right, you would just tell your team, just go press those guys. They will give you the ball right back right away. Someone like a Pedro Porro actually will relieve a lot of the pressure that sometimes I think we've been under at times where we kind of, as we noticed and as we probably continue to kind of complain about, Spurs, when kind of being put under a bit of kind of under the cosh, when they're under a bit of pressure by the opposition, they really do tend to give it away quite easily back to the other team. And by giving it back to the other team so easily, you're kind of just putting yourself under more pressure and more pressure and more pressure. And then it gets even harder to kind of get onto the ball and try to calm things down. I actually think this is maybe a weird argument to make, but since he is so much better on the ball and so much more composed than the rest of the players we have at right wing back, we will actually have more opportunities where I think Porro would be able to pick out a pass or be able to pick out, somebody in the team that will relieve us from pressure when we are being pressed. And also someone like Romero will actually finally be a bit more confident in the right wing back next to him when also he's being put under pressure and things like that. So I actually think that's going to help us out tremendously. It's just having more technically gifted players on either side of the pitch when we are trying to, beat that sort of press and we are moving it out wide. Another thing as well for me, though, is just the fact that I think Sessegnon, let's be honest, isn't able to do anything going forward. He really isn't able to do anything defensively at the moment in time. So I think you kind of just stick with Perisic no matter what. So it's almost like it could be a valid question if maybe Sessegnon were good enough at this time in space to be that defensive wingback. But at the moment in time, I don't think he's been great defensively. He's been absolutely useless going forward. He's been a hindrance to us going forward. And so you kind of just have to stick with Perisic, it feels like, on the other side, and then might as well just go with your best option on the other right-hand side and make it really dangerous. And also there have been times where I think Aston Villa was a really good example where basically they were just saying, you know what, you're not going to get anything through the middle. We're going to allow you to have it out wide, see what you can do to us out wide, see if you can actually bring the quality and put in good balls into the box and things like that. And they simply proved us, that we didn't have that type of quality out wide. We did play Perisic, I recall, but he still didn't really do enough from out there. And we did go with, I think it was Doherty or Emerson too, and it just simply just wasn't good enough. And now having real quality on both sides when it comes to the delivery, I actually think will help us out weirdly defensively, if that makes any sense at all. I actually do think that'll help us out
He
defensively.
will.
Just him being good on the ball will help us out defensively.
Hopefully, Jack, it'll also make Antonio Conte a little bit happier, knowing that he has someone like Pedro Porro down the right and Perisic down the left to work with, knowing that Doge is coming in next season. If Spence can go out on loan and have a decent second half of the season, potentially he can come back in next year. So hopefully it's a sign that keeps Conte happy. Now, just quickly, there's two more things I want to touch on with Porro before we move on, Jack, is with Porro, my gripe with the club on this one is we have the whole World Cup to be able to try and, get this deal in place. We ended up paying the release clause or just over the release clause. Now, the whole reason we were waiting for 29 days is that they were hoping to save 10 million. Now, what that does prove is that they are willing to sacrifice points and games in a crucial part of the season to save a bit of money, which didn't work out in their favor this time. And that's exactly why protests are happening on deadline day outside the training ground, because of shit like this. If they were going to end up paying this fee in the first place, this should have been done the 1st of January. And this month could have been maybe that bit better for us. If we would have had Porro against Arsenal, might have helped us out a little bit. If we would have had Porro against City, could have helped us out a little bit as well. So, that's my gripes with the board on this one. You end up paying the full fee, if not a little bit more over it anyway.
So stupid
why did we have to wait 29 days for this to happen? It really didn't need to happen. And this is my point with the owners at times. Like, we sacrificed 3 windows without a signing so we could have the stadium. Fair enough, I get it. But then when the team needs help, stop haggling over 10 million and just pay that 10 million so that you can help out the manager, you can help out the team. And by bringing him in a lot earlier, the fans might not have been in as much as an uproar, which rightly so we are. Conte might have been a little bit more happier this month as well. So I do have my gripes with the board on that. And that won't change because I believe this could have been done on the 1st. And then one more thing. Oh, sorry, if you want to come back in and then I have one more thing to add.
I was just going to prove your point there. Like, that makes it less of an excuse to get the deal. Like, there's less of an excuse to do the deals or do the business late because they also had that World Cup period where there weren't any games. There weren't really exactly too many distractions or anything going on or too many, pressing matters or anything like that. Maybe the Paratici scandal got put, ahead of things and maybe distracted everybody. But I still don't think that is much of an excuse at the end of the day. Like, that is their own fault, with everything that seems to have gone on with that. So it sort of feels like, Dave, they also have less of an excuse because with that, World Cup that was going on, they could have done a lot of things ahead of time. They could have either gotten maybe more assurances from Conte. They could have maybe gave Conte some more assurances as well by bringing him in transfers like you brought up. I think there is less of an excuse too, because there wasn't exactly a lot of things going on, about the club. It was actually quite quiet over there during that World Cup time period. And so they could have, done some things ahead of time.
Like, I know Sporting said they wanted to keep him for the cup final, right? But that's because the deal was so close to the cup final. Correct. If we would have got that on the 1st of January, they wouldn't have even considered that. They would have said, give us the 45 million, we'll go and replace him. Plenty of time to do it before the cup final happens. Right. But also, if we would have got that done the 1st of January, which we could have, by the way, Liverpool signed Gakpo before January started, which meant he came in on the 1st. It would have given us more time to be able to work on centre-back signings. Instead of sending all of our delegates out to Sporting for the last couple of days to be able to negotiate a deal, that could have been done earlier, and we could have been looking at maybe addressing another position in this January transfer window. And that's where the frustrations from Spurs fans come in. And like I said, that's why protests are happening deadline day at the training ground. So that does have to improve because we've had to go this whole month over a battle of 10 million, which we ended up losing out on in the first place. So you may as well have just brought me in on the 1st if that's the case. But then also on Pedro Porro, I want to add, Jack, 2 little things that if you really want to scrutinize the deal on Pedro Porro, does have a history of picking up a lot of niggles over the course of seasons. That could become a problem. But also the hot-headedness. Now, look, I know we aimed that at Romero. hasn't really become a problem. But look, you know, there are two maybe things to highlight if you really want to scrutinize the Pedro Porro deal. But, you know, all the pluses outweigh them too, for
I
sure.
completely agree. Well said, Dave. And, bringing up devil's advocate kind of stuff. Brandon Troller, good to see you. Brandon saying, great to see you back, you big, beautiful Irishman. You, any chance we chuck in a 45 million bid for Piero? Could be a middle center back after Bastoni comes in for the summer. I think he might end up being more of a left-sided center back just because he's a bit quicker, a bit sort of kind of more agile. He plays as a left-sided center back, I believe, for the likes of Bayer Leverkusen from time to time too. Brandon. So I could see him being more pushed out wide to the left. And maybe we play like Longley in the middle or something like that. Or we do something, maybe Dyer is put in the middle still. We have to live with that. But it could just be a whole lot better, I think, with Hincapie brought through. But it's a tough one. I'd like to see just still Dyer and at least just that back line in general be given much more competition. But what would you say to Brandon here, Dave?
No, look, look, everyone knows how I feel like on centre-backs. I don't want to keep repeating myself on the issue. I warned everybody, absolutely everybody in the summer, this January we'll be sitting here talking about centre-backs. And everyone said, no, Dave, you're crazy. Dyer, Davy, Sanchez, get off the bat. You're being a meanie-weenie. But the reality is we're sitting here this January talking about centre-backs. But not only did I highlight this this summer, I highlighted it last season. I've highlighted it a long time about these centre-back positions. And if we really want to see drastic changes in terms of consistency of results, consistency of performances, the centre-back issue has to be addressed. It's that simple. I've always stated this. Go back down the years. We've always had good attacking players that will score our goals. Always. What we haven't always had is a watertight defence. Now, under Pochettino, we had that. Look at the heights it brought us to. You want to get back to that? Surely you look at the attack line, it's more or less similar. You still got Kane and so much Poch had. But what we don't have is a back line that Pochettino had. So fucking get it sorted if you want to get back there. It's that simple. The answers are slapping us in the face. It really is. So just spend the money. I don't care where you find it. Spend the money. I'm sick of winning one week and losing the next week. And the reason why that happens is because our back line just has them inconsistencies. And I've always had it for the last 3 years. You get in better players, them inconsistencies stop, and you start seeing a lot more greens beside your name than green, red, or green, orange for a draw, whatever it is. It's that simple.
Brandon,
that simple.
I hope we bring in a Piero. I hope we bring in really anybody. I think pretty much any type of center back would challenge, the current lot that we have. So I'd take anybody. But thank you very much, my man. Really do appreciate it.
And I'm going to return the favor. Big up, Brandon, you big, beautiful American. Big up.
Good man, Brandon is. Lisa says, big up, Dave and Jack. Good afternoon, all. Good to see you, Lisa. Hopefully you're keeping okay. And then Mark has a bit of news here, Dave, and then we'll kind of wrap it up with the last sort of kind of other news and get on out of here. But Mark saying the expectation at this stage it is more likely that Pedro Porro will be the last of the first team arrivals this month, says from Ali Gold. And then Mark also followed up saying sources very close to Brian Hill. He's not happy, and if they don't let him go out, he has lost motivation even from training. Sevilla loves him, and he doesn't care where he just wants to go out. At the training part's interesting because we've heard from Antonio.
Sanchez could learn a thing or two, Jack, here.
He wants to play football. Davinson Sanchez could learn a thing or two, and he wants minutes. But the training part's interesting for me, Dave, just because we've been told a lot by Antonio Conte as well as Stellini that he trains really hard. And we've heard from Ali Gold that he trains really hard, Brian Hill. And so if that is gone and he is kind of maybe starting to kind of mope around a little bit, that does mean we are starting to kind of break him, and you don't kind of blame the kid, because I said this before. I think he's taken his opportunities. He's taken his chances. He's always looked good whenever he's come on, and he's not really ever rewarded or anything. And it's another kind of young player that I do think we've kind of gotten it wrong with. And I don't really blame him for maybe starting to lose that motivation with Spurs.
Look, again, another thing I've highlighted, the reason why we can't bring these youngsters through, the likes of Spence, who's also suffering more or less the same fate, I predict Sarr would probably suffer the same fate a bit further down the line as well, is that we've gotten some of the best young talents around Europe. But then how do we develop them? Now, the reason why they're not getting any game time is because when you go into these cup games, we have to play players to put them in the shop window, to try and give them confidence, all this bullshit, right? So then the likes of these younger players don't get to play in these games, because the whole idea is you send out these guys who are looking for confidence, game time, etc. They go out, they get the job done nice and early because they're hungry for first team football. Then you can bring on the young guys and let's see what they can do. We can't do that at Tottenham Hotspur because these games we always fucking struggle in. And no manager is going to say, okay, 1-0 up, let's offload, bring all the youngsters on, because if a goal goes in, he's already played these cards. All these best players are already off the pitch. So these guys are relying on the guys ahead of them to get these games done nice and early, a bit of a nice cushion, so they can come on, have half an hour runabout, and prove to the manager what they can bring and put themselves in the manager's eye for the next cup game that comes around, and thinking, okay, he done really well when he came on, let's give him a start. And then he takes that opportunity. But we can't afford these guys these opportunities. Jamie Donnelly's father, for the guy from the under-21s, is already moaning about it. So there's no pathway for these guys. They can't even get in FA Cup games, whereas you go and look at City, other teams around, they can play youngsters in their cup games. They can give youngsters a chance to say, no, I'm good enough. Keep me around. Keep me in your plans. We can't do that. Now, when I look at Gil, does it look like he's lost any love for the game for me? Nope. I mean, yesterday was the first thing he done, Jack. We were moaning yesterday. We just want someone to take some initiative. What did Gil do? Get on the ball, run inside, beautiful way to pass to Kulu into Danjuma. He gets his debut goal. The guy is infectious. His energy is infectious. I don't care what people say about him, but there's a player in there and he's infectious. To me, it doesn't look like he's lost any of his love, but I can understand where it starts. Like, Gil is a player. He just wants to be out there playing. He's a free soul. Let him get on the ball. Let him produce the magic. But it's also limited.
But it's also, though, like you said, Dave, he just wants to play and he's a free soul. But like when you're also playing well with the chances that you get given, you kind of like you're left like, what else do I do here? Like, there's not much else I can do. And that's when it's tough, right? And then it's up to you to be patient. But not every player can be patient this day and age. They really can't. They can only be patient for so long. And like you said, it's the opposite of a Sanchez, right? It's a guy that looks at, his time here and has been like, do you know what? I've taken advantage of my opportunities that I've been given, and I'm not really being fully rewarded for it. I'm going to be, taking my talents elsewhere, maybe just sort of, try to develop my trade elsewhere. And there's no shame in that, because that's the motivation that, or the type of mentalities that we do kind of want in the squad that we do kind of lack at this moment. We have way too many players that are the complete opposite. They're just sort of happy to be here, happy to, sit the bench, warm the bench, and sort of, just, sort of kick it about in training and just sort of give the bare minimum all the time. Whereas Messi has been the opposite. Messi's been the opposite.
The worst thing you can do as a youngster, Jack, is stick around and not get any game time, because what it does do is in them years where you use them to grow, it stunts your development. It completely stunts your development. And then, the chances of you going to these clubs still at a sort of higher level dwindles the less and less you play football, which it has a knock-on effect for your whole career. So if I was a youngster and I wasn't getting minutes or I wasn't being played, get me out of there. Get me out to play minutes. There's a Sky Sports documentary out at the minute about the transfer window on it. It's about last summer. Tanganga wanted to leave. He wanted to go out and get minutes. And the reason why we couldn't let him go, Jack, we couldn't bring players in here. So you've got Tanganga that's frustrated because he wants game time. Spence that's frustrated. He wants game time. Sarr wants game time. You've got Gil that wants game time. And we can't do it because we can't get some of the shit players out quick enough. We can't bring in guys in here that are good enough quick enough, which means then you can free up them guys to go out on loan and keep developing, keep learning the trade. By going out on loan and playing regular first-team football, the things that maybe you lack to play at a club like Tottenham now is what you learn. But we can't give them the opportunity, because understand why Conte wants to keep a big squad. The FA Cup, Champions League, Premier League, and our injury record this season. So he has to have the numbers there. He has to. Because if he doesn't, then he's looking at bringing in guys from the under-21s, which are nowhere near good enough, by the way. They're so far off the level, it's unbelievable. It's absolutely shocking. So he has to keep these guys around. But then these guys are not happy because they want to protect their own career and they want to develop. And they, at a young age, you just want to play football. You don't want to be riding the bench. You don't want to be fucking, being a happy clapper cheerleader. You want to play, but we are stunting their progress. We need to get these guys out alone. And I understand where Gil, Spence, Tanganga, Sarr, understand where they're all coming from.
It's a mess, Dave. It's a complete mess. Everybody, we're gonna move into kind of the other little bits of news, and then we're sort of gonna wrap it up over here. Please, please, please hit that like button if you have enjoyed this kind of news update and everything so far, everybody. But we're gonna talk about Piero Hincapie. We just finished all of our kind of Pedro Porro stuff, everybody. So we're gonna move on to the bit of Hincapie news. Piero Hincapie, everybody. He is a Bayer Leverkusen player, by the way, everybody. Left-sided center back, 6 feet tall. He's also left-footed as well, and his contract over at Bayer Leverkusen is up till 2026. So we would probably have to pay a bit of coin to get him out of that. But here it is, everybody. German publication Bild suggests that Tottenham have sent a verbal offer of 25 million euros, approximately 22 million pounds, over to Leverkusen. That is quite well below what Leverkusen would reportedly accept for Hincapie, which is actually around 34 million pounds. So I guess the bid, Dave, was around 12 million pounds short. We have lowballed them here.
Verbal offer, Jack. Verbal. Just put the fucking offer in. Why is it verbal?
It feels like maybe perhaps they were trying to, maybe that was 25 or something up front. Maybe that's what they were trying to do, is saying like no installments or anything, no kind of structured payment plan. Maybe it was just cold hard cash that they wanted to throw at Leverkusen and see if they would attempt it. But as we know at Spurs, they are going to go for the low ball sort of attempts. But my question to you though is, it feels like maybe after bringing in Pedro Porro, they do have a bit of time to look after another signing. Spurs have been looking at this guy, Piero Hincapie, for a very long time. It feels like they were leaving it till the summer, and there's a lot of suggestions from Ali Gold that they might still leave him till the summer. Do you feel like there is still a chance we could bring in a center back, Dave, considering this rumor?
Jack, I thought we would have done it last summer. We made 7 signings, not one of them a centre back. You know how angry and disappointed I was over that. I have absolutely no faith whatsoever anymore that this club is going to address this issue until Dyer's 33, Sanchez is 32. You know, I have no faith whatsoever in this club addressing this issue at all, Jack. I can't. I'm not even going to sit here and say I think we will. Me personally, I think you will see a lot of these journalists telling people that, yeah, there's a chance because Tottenham are always looking for an opportunity. But from my experience over the last few deadline days, they've been shut by 1 o'clock. Sky Sports have turfed the cameras out of there and gone home because Tottenham have come out and said they're not doing any business unless they can get some of the youngsters out on loan. So for me, I think, of course, all the journalists are going to tell you there's a chance because, of course, they want you glued in on deadline day, right?
Yeah, they got to.
It's their biggest showpiece. They want you to be there. But as a Spurs fan, I've been there, but we haven't participated. So I'm not getting my hopes up whatsoever. If I look back at last January when we could have done with more than 2 players, especially last January, more so than this January, we only brought in 2. So I would hedge my bets. We're probably done on the incomings this January transfer window unless we can ship out a couple of players very late on in the window, which then frees up wages, a bit of funds, which then maybe you can act and bring somebody in.
Yeah.
25 million for Hincapie, Jack. He's got 3 years left on his contract. He ain't going anywhere for fucking 25 million. This guy, you're talking probably around 45, 50 million, especially with 3 years left on his contract. But as well, you've got to actually officially put in the offer. This verbal offer, I'll be honest, to me, it's just the same tricks we always do. It's just like, if you're serious, go and put in a serious bid and get him in here. For me, this is one that kind of, it's keeping you excited for the next few days, right? But when you look at it, verbal offer, I think that's the only reason why we're doing it, just to keep people excited for the next few days. I genuinely don't believe it's going to happen. I genuinely don't believe we've any intentions of addressing the centre back issue this January. Because guess what? We were told that earlier on in the January transfer window. Don't expect any centre backs till the summer, and then we'll sign 2.
Yeah.
So I have no hope. I don't hold out any hope.
I would say, everybody, don't get your hopes too high. Hincapie, though, has been described as a very raw and still has been described as very raw, Dave, but still also has a lot of development to do. I think, though, he has a very high ceiling, but is still not the full package yet. Should Spurs get an older, maybe ready-made center back that maybe has sort of reached his ceiling, or should maybe they take a risk on a young talent like this that could end up being, a real star for the future, but is also the risk of him being maybe not fully developed? yet in terms of his skill set. So what do you go for, Dave? Because it is January. You can't bring in the big names. You can't bring in Bastoni. You can't bring in, like a Skriniar or something like that. You do probably need to sort of look at one or the other, right? Somebody that's talented, but maybe not proven. Or do you go for somebody that's maybe a bit more ready-made, but has already, let's say, reached his ceiling?
Do you know what, Jack? This is one that you've sort of
It's my favorite question.
Bended me is probably the wrong words to use, but you've bended my thoughts, right, on this situation. And let me explain. So for me, I still stand by this. We need that experienced guy in the heart of that back line, which brings, the organization, the mentality. It just brings so much. We need that leader in the back line, right? We need someone for the here and now. We definitely do. But I've just come to accept, Jack, and you've probably maybe opened my eyes a bit to this. It really doesn't matter who we bring in. They're going to be better than what we've
It's already an improvement.
We brought in Lenglet on loan, right, who was way out of favour at Barcelona. He's already proven he's better than Dyer, Davies and Sanchez. So when you look at that, in reality, anyone you bring in here is better than what we're used to seeing, and that's the harsh truth of it. So whether it's someone like Hincapie coming in with a point to prove an Ndika, whereas maybe previously I would have said, okay, if that's the only one, I don't want it. But if it's brought in with an experienced one, I would accept it. But in reality, like you've opened my mind to, anybody's better than the shit that I've been watching over the last 3 years. So,
would you take a Harry Maguire loan on 6 months then?
I would, Jack. I would.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you've got to start the rebuild of this back line somewhere. And if it means bringing in an up-and-coming youngster now and then bringing in another guy in the summer who a bit more experience, so be it. But there's more options than the likes of Hincapie. You've got De Vrij, who I believe Villarreal are looking at trying to sign up. You've got Maguire at United, who I believe would solve not all of our issues, but would solve a lot of them in terms of balls that come into the box. No one wins the first header ever at this club. But Maguire would clear most of them, but also would be a huge help for Gio down the other way. So there are some pros to bringing in Maguire. And the reality is, he's been out of the United team, but starts ahead of Dyer in the England team. So that tells us everything we need to know, because Dyer starts for us week in, week out. But yet, two players that have been out of favour in the club, the likes of Lenglet and Harry Maguire, both start for club and country, respectively, over Eric Dyer. So, look, for me, I just want the issue addressed, if I'm being brutally honest, Jack.
Anything.
We've also got Ndika, whose contract is running down in Germany. So, if a 25 million fee might actually get someone like an Ndika. But an Hincapie, that's just taking the piss. 3 years left in his contract, you're talking 50 million.
Yeah, I think they should look elsewhere. I think they should look at someone like an Ndika if they really do want to try to get someone in. If they want to get someone that's young as well as talented, has a very high ceiling, but also can maybe walk, as we just established, basically anything can walk into this back line and get a starting spot at the moment. The competition isn't very high, but it feels like Ndika would be maybe a more sensible choice. He has 6 months left. Maybe Frankfurt would listen to a transfer, or a bid of some kind. And Ndika, if he is maybe set on coming to the Premier League, and if he wants to come over here, I think he would maybe consider a club like Spurs as well. And he also has maybe a guy like Longley as well as Hugo, maybe to help him settle in too. So there's that, I think, as well. Mark New, good to see you, my friend. Big up, Dave and Jack. Great update. Wonderful to welcome Dan Juma and Porro. Yes, we really need a center back to upgrade Moon Boots and Dyer. What's the news on Hincapie? We sent in basically a verbal bid, Mark, and it was verbally rejected right back into our face. That's what I imagine happened.
Do you know what, Jack? I'll be honest. You only see these terms in Tottenham transfer windows. You never look at United's transfer window and see verbal offer or verbal this, verbal that. You never see that shit with any other club. But when Tottenham comes around, we invent new phrases in the transfer window. It's unbelievable.
Portal Dreams, Hincapie is a good signing. Needs to keep looking at South America for well-priced talent. With the hunger and fight, Spurs need to start competing. I think there are two areas that Spurs should be sending the scouts out to. I think we need to be sending some scouts out to some of these leagues in South America where we can kind of get some of these young and up-and-coming players ahead of time, like maybe how Brighton have, like how other clubs have. But I also think we need to be sending some of these scouts out to Eastern Europe, like where the Mudriks are coming from, where Kavicha, guys like that are coming from, like, because clearly, like, Russia has had some, very, very talented players that maybe you could poach from over there and things like that. So I don't know. Send him to Eastern Europe, send him to the wide ranks, of the world. And I'll be happy to do it. I'll be happy to do
Do
it.
you know
In
what,
case
Jack?
Paratici needs me, send me over to Ukraine. I'll be happy to do it and scout the next Mudryk.
Do you know what, Jack? When you look at some of the youngsters we sign, a lot of them are sort of English based from other teams. What's that guy we got from Southend, the left-sided guy? Then you bring in Will Lancashire from Sheffield, United, I believe. And you look at some of the youngsters; they're all from English clubs. Now, when you see the likes of United City's Academy, and they've got players from Africa, Europe, Asia, Australasia, America, all in themselves. You look at Germany. Look how many players they bring over from America and filter through their academies.
Yeah, right.
That's because they've got people in them countries scouting for them. I wonder, do we have that? Now, that's something I want to go and look more into. Now, I'm guessing we don't have too much of it or have it to a level that some of these other clubs have it to. Because if we did, we'd see a lot more quality players in our under-21s from all different locations.
I agree.
So I wonder how many people, because for Liverpool, you go to most of the big footballing counties around this country, they all have local people that are scouts for them, that send people over there regularly on trials, 2-week trials. You're either good enough, you get a contract, or you don't, and you're sent home. But they have people dotted all around this country in the big footballing counties that have historically produced players for Ireland, looking out, sending people over. And you're talking at grassroots levels, Jack. Not even always at county levels. You're talking Sunday league clubs, underage teams, this, that, and the other that play on a Saturday league. You look at United, they have them all over the world. We need to start doing that. Instead of having scouts sitting there behind computers, you actually need people out there looking at all these underage games, getting in contact with people and saying, look, Tottenham interested. Get over there for a 2-week trial. It's organised, plane tickets. There you go. Let's see. I wonder, do we have that? Because you don't really see too many trialists coming over. I think the last trialist we've seen is that guy coming over from Shamrock Rovers this January for the 2-week trial. Now, I'm not sure what the conclusion of that has been. I will find out. But I can guarantee you now, he's not the level that we need. No one in League of Ireland has been talking about this guy. League of Ireland is shit. So if he was really that good at that age, everybody would be talking about him. But nobody is. So I wonder, because I know for a fact from being in the county systems over here, I've never heard of a Spurs delegate go to anybody and say, oh, look, get over there for a 2-week trial. So let's wait and see. But that's something I want to look more into. And I'll let people know my findings on it.
Big up Tyler in the chat. Good to see him, my man. He wants to go after Disasi from Monaco. He's absolutely huge. I think he's like 6'5" or something like that. He's an absolute mountain. Also, Jacob is in the chat. Good to see you too, Jacob. Peter Simons is in here. Faz Radfar. Good to see you, Faz Radfar. And then USA Spurs. Hopefully you're keeping well, my friend. The bottom dude is saying, if not Hincapie, I'd like to see us go after Facundo Medina. Let's build an Argentine backline. He is a top defender. Facundo Medina, I think he would play on the left. He's a left-sided center back, Dave, left-footed, plays over in Liga, over with Lens or something like that. I think it is Lens. He's actually been rated as a very underrated sort of signing for Spurs in the past, like somebody that would be a very clever one because of that Romero connection. But he basically is, I would basically describe him simply as another Romero on the left-hand side. He's really aggressive, good on the ball as well, has really good kind of progressive passing, likes to look up, doesn't really pass sideways or anything like that. He's very, free to carry the ball too, like with a bit of a bravery. I really like Facundo Medina. I've seen some good numbers from him in the past, stats wise. I've seen maybe some good highlights of him too. A lot of people have spoke about him before, even like a year or two ago. People recommended him, to Spurs. He's still kind of keeping up that, that track record. I like Facundo Medina to bottom Duda, especially. I actually think it's more realistic player for Spurs to actually go after because he's, left-sided center back, Argentine, but not, one of the bigger names, that everybody's looking at. He could be very achievable for Spurs. I actually think that's a really clever choice or a really clever suggestion, my man. Big up.
Big up the bottom Duda. May do more looking into him. I don't really know too much about him, to be honest.
I think even the Euro expert, recommended him one time or two. So definitely some people like that guy. Big yourself up to bottom Duda. Paul Markey says, yeah.
Just quickly, I'm just looking into the scouting department here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 scouts. And what is it, 7, 8 of them are English. You know, so it just goes to show that I don't think we've got enough scouts around the world.
Yeah, we need more guys that I think are out in some of those obscure leagues and things like that, that, can identify those, hidden talents and, things like that. Look, like how did Brighton find Matoma? People like that. Like, how were they able to
Well,
do that?
how did Nick find Matoma, Jack?
Yeah,
He's
I know.
on the scouting board.
Let's get Nick, Dave. Get a few Yanks into the scouting department, see what they can do. Paul Markey says, big note to Numpty Maguire. He's worse than our own. I have to disagree with you, Paul. He's not. But just break it to you, my man. He's not.
I ask you, if he was worse, then why did Maguire start ahead of him in the England team?
Exactly.
Without playing for United, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, even Southgate, puts him well ahead. And I don't know. I think Sanchez, he's worse than Sanchez, or he's better than Sanchez. He's better than Tanganga. He's better than Dyer. He's better than Davies. It's a sad case. It really is.
And look, I'm not saying Maguire should be the benchmark of the player we're going after. But if Maguire was available this January for a loan or a 20 million fee, I would pay it because he is better than what we've got by Romero. He just is. And that's more a reflection on how piss poor our players are.
Yeah.
It's not how good Maguire is. Don't get that mistaken. Yeah. That's just a reflection of how piss poor we are. Yeah. That we're willing to accept someone like Maguire.
I just don't rate our defense that highly, Paul. Like it's just that bad at the moment. Like I think Maguire does walk straight into this team. You may disagree. I just think he does. Brandon Troller says, if we need a short-term fix, get Otamendi, a World Cup monster. His mentality is impressive, I would say. Otamendi. He is a winner. He is a winner, the guy. And also as well, he does seem to he has a good connection with Romero. You could see those two kind of vibing well together. He could probably play through the middle too, right? He doesn't have to maybe have too much range. He doesn't have to step out as much, and he can kind of look ahead and see things. And I don't know. I think Otamendi, if you were to plug him in, he actually wouldn't be a bad idea for the middle of the center back, right? He could challenge Eric Dyer. I could see him doing that, So I don't mind that shout actually at all, especially if we're going after like realistic, achievable players that you could sign in the next 3 days, right? Players that you could sign in the next 3 days. I'm not angry at that shout. I don't dislike that shout from Brandon Troller. I actually think it would sort of make sense, to be fair. And again, another player that probably still walks straight into this team, actually, in terms of that back line.
If it was something to see you through to the end of the season, Jack, I'd take it for sure.
Yeah. And then also he says, our scouts identified Kvaradona. Levy just didn't want to pay the fee. Now he's worth 130 million plus. Kim Min-jae, it's the same thing, but maybe worth 80 million now. I cry every time. Brandon, believe me, buddy, because those two guys were I think Kim Min-jae was my first ever scout report on flatcapeurotalk. The first ever one I did was on Kim Min-jae. Yeah. And then I think the second or third one I ever did was actually Kavicha. So it just shows that these were the 2 or 3 guys that actually were top of my list like 2 years ago, basically a full 2 years ago. Brandon, Kavicha and Kim Min-jae were like the 2 sort of secret players that I know not many people knew about at the time that I really wanted Spurs to sign. And believe me, I'm crying every day too. Dave knows this as well when it comes to Kavicha. Like I even get enraged when I hear people say, oh, why didn't Spurs sign Kavicha? Blah, 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 blah. It's like, where were you when I was talking about this 2 years ago? So I don't know. Brandon, I'm completely with you, my man. I'm crying alongside you. Can
I make a point on this, Jack? Now, this is where us fan base we've got to know what we want. And I'm not criticizing fans by any means, believe me. But if we would have signed them at the time, both of them would have been labelled as a cheap Enoch Levy signing. And that's just the reality of it. They both would have. But then what we also do as fans is when they go elsewhere and they come good, then we moan. Oh, well, why didn't we get him in? Why did we pass up on this? Why do we pass up on that? And it's like, but at the time when we were rumored, I've seen so many people go cheap Enoch signing, cheap Levy signing.
It'd be the same thing if we signed Matoma. If we had signed Matoma, it'd be the same thing.
And this is the thing. What we have to understand is if we don't want to be caught paying 70, 80 million every single season for top world-class players, you've got to identify them young and bring them in. But then when we do that, risks. We don't give them a chance. You look at Gil for a prime example. Written off before he come here. Most fans don't like him because he was brought in young when we needed for here and now, which I can understand. But was labelled an Enoch and a Levy signing, But so we have to
Yeah, Hill was
We
like
have
Hill
to come
Messi
to
was
terms
labeled
with.
a total
Yeah,
Enoch and Levy signing, and now all of a sudden everybody loves him and everybody sees the talent and everything. It's a mixed bag, Dave. Like you have to be able to welcome in these young players, but also realize that like if you do want to do what Brighton, Brentford, all these clubs that
yeah,
are operating very smart right now and doing exactly what we probably want to be doing too, you have to consider the fact that you'll be taking risks on 11 million pound players from Eastern Europe or 11 million pound players from South America or wherever in the world, right? And you will be taking those risks if you want to play that type of game. If you don't want to be spending 400 million every single window, you have to play that type of smart type of style, and that means improving the recruitment department, that means improving the scouting, but also as well it means as a fan base we have to accept those sort of signings and not write them off right away, like you said. Exactly right.
100%. But also, I will add, if we had a proper first 11 product or a proper 15, 16 product to pick from every week, I also don't believe fans would be as in uproar over these signings
Mm,
because you're giving them a chance to come in and get up to speed and this, that, and the other. Whereas I think where that probably comes from is like, well, we need a centre back. We know we need a really good centre back, but you want to spend 5, 10 million. Whereas in reality, if you had a really good centre back and then brought in a Kim Min Jae, I don't think as much of an uproar would be there. But like I said, if we're going to aim at the owners, about these signings being cheap, etc., then you shouldn't be moaning when they go to other clubs and produce the stuff that they are. So the only way around it is accept these youngsters when they come in, give them some breathing space, some time to develop and settle in, so that then the knock-on effect is you don't have to spend 80, 90 million every single transfer window because you've already identified them early through good scouting and they're coming through into the first team and they're playing magnificent football. So us as a fan base, when we do sign these young players, you've just got to give it a chance.
hmm Another thing too, though, is I just think when Spurs are linked with these type of players and when Spurs are connected to these type of players, like also just don't write it off as right the Enoch and Levy signing, and it's just yeah, because we've been
We
connected to
can't
these
have it both
big
ways,
we,
Jack.
yeah, yeah, you just can't have it both ways. And I agree with you fully, Brandon. I really do. And I just hope we do sort of learn our lesson with this. And especially if we want to be that type of club that can say that, you identified it ahead of time and you saved, not really saving the money. It's just more right. Like you can say that you didn't have to spend an arm and a leg to bring in a world-class player. You did your research, you did your due diligence, right? And you were able to do it kind of the hard way. And there's some bit of pride in that. And I think Spurs have gotten a bit disillusioned from that. And also maybe we as a fan base have gotten a bit disillusioned from that because a lot of us just seem to think that a guaranteed good player is worth 30 million plus when that's not always the case. You see guys walking into the Premier League for 3 million euros and all of a sudden, they're the best players in their team. It's just about how you do the scouting. And also as well, it's maybe why we're so harsh on people like Hitchin in the past, because whether you have 300 million to work with or 10 million to work with, it's about having an actual person that's competent at their job and good at their job and see if they can work with whatever budget they have. If you have a complete idiot in charge, it doesn't matter how much money you give them. They're going to continue to bring you in dud after dud after dud after dud. So that's why we need to also as well make very sure that the directors of football, the technical directors, all those sort of guys know what they're doing and can work with any type of budget. They can work with a 200 million budget. They can work with a 10 million budget. I think that's what you also want. People that are smart and good at their job and not wasting money as well, especially because we're a club that can't really waste money. Let's be honest as well. We just can't. Brandon Troller saying, should be all over Yunus Musa, the American, but homegrown too. I didn't even know that he would be
Yeah,
a
he came through
homegrown.
the Arsenal Academy.
I didn't
Um,
even know that. He's
Yeah, he came
balling.
through the Arsenal Academy. I think he won the under-17s World Cup with England, but then declared for America when he got the international call-up.
He's the
Um,
guy I said. He's the guy I said we would actually. I've instead of Weston McKennie, I actually thought this was the one I would have rather actually Spurs took a look at was Yunus Musa. I'm a big fan of his, and I think he's over at Valencia. Actually, out of any of the La Liga players that I would take a look at too, that I would poach, Yunus Musa would be very, very high up that list of any of the La Liga players that I would go after. So I really like him, and I think he could play in a midfield three. He's kind of a bit versatile too, right? He can play kind of really anywhere. He plays as a right wing, plays as like a center mid. He can play kind of all over. I really liked him. And I actually thought if you were picking between him and Weston McKennie of any of the Americans to poach, I actually was more leaning towards Yunus Musa, Brandon, than Weston McKennie personally. So I like that
yeah.
kid. I like him.
Yeah, he's right. He would count as homegrown. The reason why Musa qualifies for America is because he was actually born in America while his
He's
mother
born in
was
New
on
York.
holidays. Yeah, his
Yeah.
mother was on holidays over there, and he was born in New York. But he has come through the Arsenal academy. Not sure whether that'll affect him signing for Spurs or not. But yeah, Brandon's right on this one. Big up, Brandon.
Good man, Brandon. I think
Hopefully,
we'll
you're
leave it.
surprised by my knowledge on him, though, Brandon. I do know these useless, obscure things, by the way.
You've impressed me a lot today, Dave. You've impressed me a lot today with your player knowledge and these rumors. But there you are, everybody. I think that's sort of our news breakdown. In case you came a bit late, in case you came, maybe midway through, we broke down a lot of stats with Pedro Porro. We had some good questions as well, kind of engaged with you guys in the chat, answered some questions about him and maybe what sort of he brings to Spurs. We got you that bit of news on Piero Hincapie. Took a look at this as well, with maybe Brian Hill and other players, just a bit of a news update, and also just to officially give you that here we go sort of video from us over at the Irish Hotspur. I do hope that you guys did enjoy this one, and please hit that like button if you haven't already while you're in here. But Dave, any kind of final words here for Harris Army fan show tomorrow, all that good stuff?
Yeah, look, fan show tomorrow evening. So make sure everybody gets on and have their say. It's the one right before deadline day. Look, I'll be honest, I'm not going to do one of these mad long streams on deadline day. Me personally, I don't believe we're going to see anything happen. The minute it looks like something might happen, I think we'll definitely hop on the stream. But if not, you'll probably see us a bit later on a Tuesday night rather than earlier Tuesday. But look, I just want to say thank you to so many people who have tuned in yesterday and today. It's been absolutely unbelievable. I'll be honest, I was expecting to come on for 45 minutes, whip through the news, maybe about 100 people watching, but we've carried over 300, sometimes into the high 300s for most of the stream. And the support has been incredible. And, a lot of good comments there, a lot of people with a lot of things to say and a lot of good questions. So, look, thank you very much, all you guys. It's a two-way thing, these channels, you get to participate as well as we get to interact with you. So I've really enjoyed it. So thank you very much for tuning in today, midday on a Sunday. It's been nice of you. Now get off. Go and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. You've better things to be doing on a Sunday evening before work, before a full week of work. So thank you for your time. We'll see you all back here tomorrow. Come on, Spurs. In Conte we trust. Let's hopefully we get a centre back before the window closes.
Get us a center back. In Conte we trust. Come on, you Spurs. We'll be seeing you, everybody.